You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network. New shows every day. Find us at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Sens Hour podcast. We're kicking off Season 3, Episode 1 with an NHL preview show looking at all 32 teams. We're going to be joined by one of my favorite people on the network and one of my favorite Twitter people in general. I'm going to see if I can actually say his name for the first time ever live. We got Neil Villapiano joining us from the Devil State. Joining us today to talk some NHL hockey. He's wearing his Devils jersey. I'm wearing my Sens, so you know what teams we're rooting for. I think I finally got your name right.
You did it. You did it. I'm so proud of you, Shane. I'm going to get emotional because you finally did it.
I finally did it.
Yes. Let's go.
So we have a full slate of hockey talk today and entering the NHL season that starts on Tuesday with a 2-game slate.
2 games.
Kind of surprising that it's only 2 games, but we'll talk about that as we go on.
Are both games? I'm trying to remember. Are both games on ESPN?
I think so. Yeah.
I feel like what they should have done. This is my personal opinion. What they should have done is have 1 game on ESPN and 1 game on TNT, just to kind of show the hockey fans, like, oh, this is what's going to look like on ESPN. This is what it's going to look like on TNT.
Isn't TNT only like weekends or like is it like the rivalry nights? That's the
yeah,
only time TNT's getting it.
They're doing what Versus used to do back in the day, like many years ago. It's like they take like the big time games.
Like the rivalry week and stuff
like that. When NBC was doing like Wednesday night rivalries or something like that's basically what TNT is doing, which is fine. But I kind of want to see more of TNT. Like I'm really curious with TNT how they're going to produce it this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But guys, here's the episode breakdown before we get started. So, like I said, we're going to jump right into the Pacific Division talk. We're going to go west to east. So Atlantic's going to be last. It's going to be Pacific Central, Metropolitan, and then the East Division or the Atlantic Division.
Metro, ladies and gentlemen. Wait till we get to the Metro Division.
The West is pretty simple.
The West is fun. In my opinion.
West is fun, but I feel like the Pacific is going to be very. You know who's going to make the playoffs, in my opinion, for the most part. I think you have the California teams, and then there's everybody else that's going to really be fighting for the playoff spot. But why don't we start off? We'll go alphabetical because why not? Mm-hmm. We'll start off with the Anaheim Ducks. Had a rough year last year.
Yep.
Ended up landing number 3 overall. They picked the guy I was hoping would fall because no one was talking about him, and Mason McTavish, who has had a good camp. I don't think he's been set down. I might have missed it. Mm-hmm. But this team actually looks relatively good and could be competitive this year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way Anaheim is, and they've clearly decided more or less that they're doing a rebuild. I mean, they never really said that they were, because you look at some of the pieces they still have. I mean, they still have John Gibson, obviously. They still have a guy like Adam Henrique on his deal. So they do have some veteran presence in the locker room. But yeah, they are, for the most part, doing a rebuild. And obviously the biggest, I would say, and I don't know if you would agree, Shane, but I think the biggest storyline for Anaheim this year is how does Trevor Zegras do in a full 82 game season? Because I think that there was such high expectations, especially when he came into the league last year and he had a couple of games in a row right away where he looked really good, that people are saying, okay, this is the time for Zegras to really show that he is that guy. And I think that that's something that, I'm very much keeping my eye on. I also want to keep my eye on Adam Henrique for the standpoint of this. Most likely the Anaheim Ducks are going to be towards the bottom of not only the Pacific, but towards the bottom of the NHL.
Yeah.
Do they end up moving Adam Henrique? That's, I think, a big question mark. His contract is definitely the thing that's going to get in the way of getting even a decent offer. But I do believe that Adam Henrique is somebody on the trade market once we get towards the deadline that very well could be somebody that some cup contending teams are like, yeah, I think we want to take a flyer on that. That's kind of the big thing for me. And also, how does John Gibson perform with a very weak defense and everything like that, especially when there is a potential that he will be one of the 3 goaltenders going to Beijing for the Olympics? You know, can he Can he be healthy enough to where he's okay to play in the Olympics? Obviously, Shane, you would hope that that's not the case since
Hey,
he,
I'm a huge Gibson fan. I'm not even gonna lie. I love the guy. I think he's a great goalie. If he were to ever become, if he were available in a trade, I would have loved to see Ottawa. Because I know last year before they traded for Murray, there
yeah,
was reports that Anaheim might have been interested in moving on from him.
right.
I think he's only like he was entering his age 26 season, I believe,
Mhm.
last year. You know, there was a lot of interest. Teams were calling them,
Yep.
and I think that if the value wasn't so high, because I mean, if I'm Anaheim, you don't have to move on from him. Realistically,
No,
you want him back there,
right.
so you're asking for quite a bit.
I was going to
I
say
would have loved to
also,
see Ottawa have traded for him instead of Murray, but I can see
mhm.
why they were a little bit hesitant if the value or the ask was too high.
And we obviously don't know if John Gibson is happy or not happy playing in Anaheim. That's the other thing. Like, no, he's
Who
never
wouldn't be happy playing in Anaheim? Who wouldn't like realistically? Who wouldn't be happy playing in Florida or like the state of Florida, either with Tampa or Florida,
Mhm.
or out in California?
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
weather wise and everything. Like
right. And you could also sympathize if John Gibson, being, at the age that he's at, being in the prime of his career, he would like to play in meaningful games. I mean,
true.
look, not everybody is going to be like Shane Doan, who plays his entire career with one team. There are times where players get tired of being in the same position where they're not winning, they're not
Yeah.
making the playoffs. And I mean, look, when John Gibson first came up in the league, ladies and gentlemen, the Anaheim Ducks were one of the big powerhouses in the Western Conference. I mean, they were constantly going deep into the playoffs. They went to the conference finals in 2015. This is this is a team that only recently has decided that they're moving on from the old core. Getzlaf's gone. Or actually, no, wait, is
He's still
Getzlaf?
back. He's
He's
still
coming
there.
back.
He
Corey
signed like a
Perry,
1-year deal.
right. They moved on from Corey Perry. They've moved on from a lot of their older players. They still have a few, but at the same time, John Gibson knows where this team is going moving forward. The question is that does he want to be there for the long ride? And look, also, the good news for him, though, is that he gets to be on a team where he's without a doubt the number one guy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that I'm sure most goaltenders want to do as well. They want to be on a team that also they're the number one guy. Anaheim can be fun to play in because I don't want to say it's a small market, but it kind of is. But they have a very passionate fan base, as the Quack Report can
That's for
those guys
sure.
definitely tell you. So, but yeah, I think Anaheim's going to be a team that very much is going to continue to be in a rebuilding phase. They're going to really struggle, but they're going to have some good moments. And I think watching Zegras is going to be like the high point for them.
Yeah, Zegras and Drysdale are going to be two. Comtois is
Drysdale,
turning
forgot
into
about Drysdale. Yep.
Comtois is turning into a really solid power forward for the Ducks on that left side on the top line. And Troy Terry, entering his age 24 season, had a really good year last year. He should be able to improve.
Mm-hmm.
This team, and Sam Steele's finally starting to find his way. You
Yep.
added Mason McTavish. This team has the ability to turn the tide quickly.
Right.
If players are healthy and performing up to expectation or performing up to their ability.
Mm-hmm.
So Anaheim's a team that I think is going to finish bottom of the league, but it's not going to be because of lack of effort.
Right. They're going to be similar to what the Devils were last year, where they're very low expectations. They compete, but they don't win a lot of games. That's kind of the way that I look at it.
Especially if Gibson if Gibson gets hurt
or starts regressing as
Yeah.
well. I mean, I don't think we're at that moment in his career where he's going to start regressing. But I mean, you never know. Especially
we've seen really good goaltenders regress behind very bad teams because they just get tired. They start to get fatigued and
right. And Shane, you've heard me talk about this numerous times. That was my whole thing with the whole Corey Schneider situation when he was in New Jersey. Is that by the time the Devils got decent in 17-18, he was tired because he was playing for several years with really bad defense and very little goal scoring support. So obviously he was playing a lot. And then obviously he overdid it. He got a groin injury and he unfortunately could never get back to full strength in the last couple of years. And only now, when he's with the Islanders, that he's been able to actually play relatively healthy.
Yeah.
So you can't overwork your goaltender. You have to have a solid 1-2 punch. That's the way that we are now in the league. And you got to hope that John Gibson doesn't have to carry 3/4 of the load because he might overdo it.
That's for sure. So moving on from Anaheim, because Anaheim could be talked about for hours because they have multiple things going on. We got the Calgary Flames. Disappointing year last year. They finished fifth in the North Division, I think like less than 10 points out of a playoff spot. They bring in former New Jersey Devil, Blake Coleman, who I'm excited about.
Oh, yeah.
They hope that they brought in Nikita Zadorov as well. Hopefully that works out for him and maybe, and you know, they didn't play bad. They were just inconsistent last year.
Yeah.
They're hoping for rebound years from Goudreau and Monahan. Obviously, Mangiapane should take that next step. I'm looking at this roster, and there is no reason for them not to be top 3 in the Pacific Division this year.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, with my predictions, I feel like Calgary definitely makes the playoffs. I don't think, because again, you got to call it like it is. The weakest division of the 4 that we're talking about is the Pacific Division, because 100%. A lot can happen and a lot of opportunities for teams that maybe you wouldn't normally expect to be really good can actually come out of the gates and be very good. This is the thing with Calgary. I would say that this is the last year that this core can get something done. Because if they don't, they have to make moves. Like Gaudreau's probably out the door. We don't know what's going on with Matthew Tkachuk. They might move on from Mangiapane. I have no idea. And here's another question. Can Jakob Markstrom get back to where he was 2 years ago when he was with Vancouver? If he can get back to that level of play, which he very well can, the Calgary Flames are going to be solid. They do have, I don't remember exactly who their backup goaltender is now.
I think it's on Daily Faceoff, they have Vladar.
Right.
Daniel Vladar is their backup.
Yeah, Vladar, right. So he's a young guy that I know a lot of Flames guys, including the In the Dome boys, have talked about before and are very excited to see. But Markstrom's going to get the majority of that, net. And here's the thing. Suter is a no-nonsense guy. He has a system that has worked in the past. But the question is his system outdated with the way the NHL is played now? I don't know. You can't really knock on him last year because he came in the middle of the season and then tried to figure it out. And to be honest, when he first came in, the Flames played a lot better. They seemed to figure it out. They, especially down the stretch there. Yeah, they dug themselves too deep of a hole in the North Division last year for them to get back into a playoff contention. But the way that they finished the season, they finished on a very big high note. So the way that I look at it from that perspective is simply that, okay, this is that year where everybody's got to be 100% and they have to get going. And the thing that I love about Blake Coleman is this. He earned that 6-year contract, okay? This is not like, to me personally, the contract that Barclay Goodrow got was ridiculous, in my opinion, that he got from the Rangers. That contract that Calgary gave Blake Coleman is totally acceptable because he's that type of player. He can play top 6 minutes. He's going to be your top penalty killer. He's going to be a guy that can also do damage on the power play. I know because I personally saw him for several years.
I love Coleman.
Jersey. He's an awesome guy. Unfortunately, he got suspended for one preseason game because of a dumb hit, but luckily that wasn't that was all that they have. But the bottom line simply for me, Shane, is this. Calgary is a team that's going to finish top 3 in this division.
100%. They have no choice.
Because of the lack of competitive teams in that division. And also, Calgary is a lot better than I think people give them credit for. So I think that's going to be a sneaky team that a lot of people are going to be taken aback by and say, wow, where did Calgary come from? And it's like, they've had the pieces. They just have struggled to put it together.
Yeah, it's all about consistency. The 3 players that I'm watching for Calgary this year, Dylan Dubé, Andrew Mangiapane, and Sean Monahan. Those are the 3 that I want to see step up. You know, Monahan has had a bad year and a half, between the 19, 20, 21 season. He has had some bad time. I want to see him kind of step up and see where he's at. He's entering, I think, his age 27 season. Mangiapane had won a hell of a world championship for Canada, entering his, I believe, his age 25 season. Dylan Dubé is entering his age 23 season. I want to see where these guys are at. And if they can produce, Calgary will have no problem making to the playoffs.
Right. And I think that they will. I feel pretty confident in that because, again, look, they're also playing they're playing the rest of the league as well. It's not like they're just playing Canada teams like they did last year. They're going to be able to have a lot of success. And Johnny Gaudreau, knowing his situation, because I do believe that this is his contract year.
I believe it's either this year or next year.
He's going to prove to himself, to the Flames, and to the rest of the league that he is worth a big pay moving into his next contract. Whether that's
100%.
with Calgary or somebody else, that's what you're going to see. So I expect him, because you see it a lot with these big-time players on their contract years, they usually have arguably their best season because they know that they're trying to prove a lot. So I expect him to do well. The biggest question mark is this: how much of an impact will Mark Giordano no longer being in Calgary affect this whole team with the leadership part of it?
Oh, I think it's going to help.
You know,
I think it's going to help.
You think so?
I think I love Giordano. Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about him later with Seattle, but don't get me. I think it was time for him to move on. I think that it was time for. Sometimes teams need a new captain, and we've seen it with LA. Dustin Brown stepped down because he realized that like it wasn't his team anymore.
Right.
It was Kopitar's. And I think that was a lot that had a lot of responsibility, a lot of maturity for Dustin Brown to step down and resign the C because he knew it wasn't his team. He knew that his time in LA was potentially coming up to an end.
100%.
And I think Calgary moving on from Giordano the way they did, they have a new captain, or they might have a new captain. Who knows if someone's going to be wearing the C or not this year. But I think overall, having some new voices and having, that aren't Giordano is going to help this team.
Yeah, I mean, look, Giordano has always been a solid player, and he did a lot in Calgary. I think you make a good point from that standpoint about, it might be a positive effect. I just look at it from the locker room perspective, because I look at like when the Sharks ended up having to give up Joe Pavelski a couple of years ago. Well, they didn't really give him up. They couldn't afford to keep him because they gave that huge contract to Erik Karlsson. He moved on.
But that's different.
I know, but still at the same time, like you could see how much it's affected that team over the last 2 seasons. They have not been able to bring that same level of energy because Pavelski brought so much to the table, whether it was just playing wise or being in the locker room. That's the thing. I don't think it'll be a massive concern, but I do think that's something to kind of keep your eye on once the season starts. And it didn't help to see that Giordano, granted it was a preseason game, but his first game back in Calgary, he scored a goal.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was kind of a good way to kind of like
relieve everything,
completely end it now. Like everything's out of the way. We move forward. I mean, obviously he'll come back once the regular season starts a couple times, but still, I mean, I think that's something that's definitely something I personally am going to keep my eye on.
Oh, 100%. So we're moving on to Edmonton. We got the Oilers with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. They should be a playoff team.
Nope.
They brought in Zach Hyman. It's going to be interesting to see
they gave
what
him the same exact contract as Milan Lucic, though. That's the problem that I'm having.
But I have a feeling that Hyman is going to be a lot better than Lucic.
One can hope.
But I think, he should be the left winger to complement McDavid. He was able to play well with Matthews. So I'm excited to see Hyman in Edmonton kind of get some things going. Are the young guys in Puljujarvi and Yamamoto going to be able to take that next step in terms of being a top six wingers? They have some massive question marks. Their defense, they have Duncan Keith and Cody Ceci as a pairing.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
I don't know how I feel about that. But their biggest question mark is the net. Is Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. I don't care who you have in front of them. How is Mike Smith, like a 41-year-old Mike Smith and a 33-year-old Mikko Koskinen gonna do?
I think they're the oldest goaltending tandem in the league, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
This is what Ken Holland does. See, this is the thing. The Oilers brought in Ken Holland because they wanted him to do the same thing they did in Detroit, where they just got a bunch of old guys that hopefully like all mesh together and they do well. Well, here's the difference. The difference is that he brought in a lot of these guys in his, this offseason. He had those old veteran players in Detroit for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That's the biggest difference here. And yeah, goaltending. You mean to tell me that they couldn't go out and get somebody else? I mean, they were talking about how much cap space they had when the offseason began.
They're $4 million over the cap. It went to trading for Duncan Keith. They traded Caleb Jones and Ethan Bear.
They traded Ethan Bear, which I mean, like it's dumb. It's dumb. Look,
and then they handed $4 million a year. Like Edmonton should make the playoffs purely based off of McDavid and Draisaitl.
I think they. I don't think they will be because of what you just said. Their goaltending is
It's
not that
atrocious.
good.
It's
It's
horrible.
awful. And there are so many young, talented teams in the league, not just in the Pacific, but in the rest of the league that is going to burn them. And once again, Shane, we got to call it like it is. This team will live and die with McDavid and Draisaitl. I know Hyman's there now, but that team is going to be
They're
forced to be
burning both
carried
of
by those two guys.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. Like Nugent Hopkins is going to do his part. Like he's going to be a solid guy for them. But again, unless Mike Smith has a Vezina Trophy season year, there is no way, absolutely no way.
And they lost
That-
their best defenseman in Adam Larson.
Yeah,
That's the problem. They wanted to replace Larson with
Keith.
old Duncan Keith. That is a very, very, very bad move, in my opinion. And I know you still have Darnell Nurse, and that's fine. That's totally fine. He's a really solid defenseman. That contract is questionable, very questionable. But you couldn't give enough money to Adam Larson? You couldn't even. He said that they gave him. He said he barely talked to them about it.
Yeah, I don't know. That entire situation pisses me off. But moving on to LA, because this is a team that I'm actually very interested in this team.
Weird team.
They brought in Victor Arvidsson from Nashville.
I like that.
They re-signed Andre Anastasio. I always butcher his name. Anastasio, yeah.
Anastasio, yep.
Mikey Anderson on defense is expected to take the next step. They have Alexander Edler in. But their big one,
Philip Deneau.
Yeah, Philip Deneau. Yeah. They have some very interesting pieces, but I'm disappointed that Byfield is hurt. He's out for at least a month. But Gabriel Velarde and Arthur Kaliev starting the season with them, those are the two big pieces I'm interested in, especially Velarde, because I remember like 2 years ago, people were worried that he wasn't even going to be able to play a game because of a back injury.
Right.
So to see those two guys on the potential opening day roster, you add in having, Cal Peterson and Jonathan Quick, who's probably one of the more underrated tandems in the league. I don't think LA does well this year, but I think they do better than people expect them to be.
They're the best of the three California teams. This to me, they're the best of the three. You made a very good point, Shane. The goaltending tandem is very underrated. Correct me if I'm wrong. Believe Cal Peterson is American. I believe, if my memory is correct. Is he American?
Who?
Cal Peterson.
I think so.
I could have sworn, because I could have sworn I thought I saw him play in World Juniors one year or something.
I think he is American.
Yeah. He could be that third. Honestly, he could, if he has a solid, beginning to this season and plays well, he could be somebody that Team USA could look at as maybe like that third goaltender, because I think that's definitely a question mark. Did you find something?
He was drafted by Buffalo.
Right. Well,
did he just leave, or did he get traded? I think he might have actually just.
I think he just left. I don't think he ever played.
I don't think he ever signed. I think he got. I'm not sure if he was traded from Buffalo, or. I didn't realize he was drafted by Buffalo, because hey, that would have solved so many problems.
And we'll talk about Buffalo's goaltending situation in a little bit
later on.
But later on, right?
Yeah.
But I like Cal Peterson. I honestly think Jonathan Quick. Look, he's not the same goaltender he was 6 years ago. Okay, we all know this, but he could still be pretty solid.
He's a solid backup,
right? And you know what? Honestly, even though the contract is ridiculous, I still think Drew Doughty can be pretty productive even at his age. And you still got Kopitar. He could still do a whole lot. Dustin Brown, I think, is still there. I want to say,
yeah, he's still there.
So they still have some pieces from obviously the Cup team, but obviously they have very low expectations because they do want a lot of their young guys to start developing like they did, when they first built this team a decade ago to try to eventually become Cup contenders. But yeah, I do believe that not only do I think LA is the best of the three California teams, this is a team that very well could be one of the tougher teams to play against in the NHL, a team that could be very gritty, a team that could be certainly physical, and definitely give a lot of teams fits with the way that they play the game. So I think that they're definitely an interesting thing. And obviously not seeing Byfield, at least for a month, is definitely disappointing. But I definitely am very intrigued to see how LA performs, particularly on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, I think LA is going to lose a lot of close games. I think they're going to be one of those
Right.
teams that
I'm with you.
you're not going to blow them out. You're not going to win like 7-1 on obviously they might have those games because every team does. I don't care how good you are. There's always games like that. But they're a team that's you're going to have to fight. It's not going to be an easy 2 points. That's for sure. I'm interested to watch them. But moving on to your second favorite team, and Ottawa's godsend, we got the San Jose Sharks, who
Oh boy, yes.
Jonathan Dahlin, Rudolph, and I'm interested. Jonathan Dahlin, I'm pretty sure was the Ottawa pick that we sent to San Jose for. It is the San.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the same guy. It was former second round pick of the Senators that we sent to Vancouver for Alex Burrows before the 2016-17 season. I'm surprised he's even in the NHL. But apparently, according to Daily Faceoff, they have him as the left winger one behind, and then you have William Eklund and then Rudolph Balcers on that left side. I don't know how I feel about this team. I look at it and I just a lot of question marks.
More question marks than answers, really.
That goaltending duo, Aiden Hill and James Reimer, just it concerns me.
It does. It should, because this is not James Reimer of 2016. This is not. And Aiden Hill, I mean, how well did he actually do in Arizona? Not great. Look, you got to call it like it is. The Sharks have to accept that they are definitely going to blow this up. They have to. But they can't, because their contracts are so bad that the only way the Sharks can really move forward is that they would have to buy out a lot of these guys. That's the reality of it. Like the Burns contract, Vlasic, Erik Karlsson, Logan Couture. I
feel like Couture's movable. I feel like if you were in any of those movable. Four, Couture is the most movable in my opinion.
The three guys that are, of the main players that are the most movable are Couture, Timo Meier, and Tomas Hertl. And Tomas Hertl, we know, already has 1 foot out the door. So
Hertl to Vegas.
That's a matter. Oh Jesus! That would be, Sharks fans would not forgive Tom Wilson for Doug Wilson for doing that. I mean, really, they would not.
Hertl to Vegas.
Yeah, you'd love that, wouldn't you? You know, how about?
I mean, I wouldn't. The Vegas boys would, though.
What if San Jose just decided to continue to be best friends with Ottawa and just traded Hertl to Ottawa?
I mean, I'd be okay with it. I mean, I would accept Hertl. I'll trade. How about this? I would trade you Hertl. I would trade Hertl
for Goodbranson.
Well, Goodbranson's in Calgary, so that's not gonna.
Oh, right, he moved on to.
Yeah, I would give you like. I don't even know who I would give up for Hertl.
See, that's the thing. Because they have a lot of good assets. So you can't.
I would just wait till he hits free agency and then sign him.
Well, that's the thing. I think most teams are going to do that, unless it's one of those things where, like, when Pajot got traded from Ottawa to the Islanders and they immediately signed him to a deal, I think that a lot of teams are going to wait on that because he's going to be one of the more looked at free agents when next season rolls around. But obviously, the big black cloud that's surrounding this franchise is what's going to happen with Evander Kane. The funniest thing, I saw a Athletic article that was literally titled like something along the lines of the Sharks team is all about positive vibes, especially because Evander Kane is not here. Like that was kind of like,
I saw that.
That was kind of the thing where it's like Evander Kane is not allowed. It's just basically not allowed to be with this team. Like even if he's like not convicted at all, because so far he's one for one in proving that he's innocent. It just, to me, it's just
you have to buy him out at this point.
Yeah, right. It's just too much. I think the Sharks just got to do it, and it's hilarious because he's arguably their best player right now, considering how he played last year. That's the crazy thing. Now, is some other team going to take a flyer on him? I think probably, because they'll look at it from the on ice production and say that. But
hey, if Tony DeAngelo can get a job,
yes.
And realistically, if Evander Kane is proven innocent on all accusations, if everything comes back as like, no, these were accusations, they weren't true, you kind of have. He did nothing wrong by law, by legality. He did
Well,
nothing
he does
wrong.
have we did confirm he does have a gambling problem. This has been
Yes.
confirmed, and he admitted it as well.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
realistically, you have players that have alcohol problems. Like, what's worse? As long as he's not
look at
betting,
look at
as
what
long as
happened
he's
with Daniel Carcillo. Look at what happened with Carcillo. Carcillo talked about it numerous times, like the problems that he had.
yeah, but like
You know,
realistically, as long as he's not gambling on games, like,
which
and
was
he's
proven that he didn't, which is
yeah,
ridiculous. Which is also ridiculous because he was the best player on the team, yet he bet on the games he played. That makes no.
yeah, it made no sense.
Everybody knew
So
that made no sense.
so if he is proven innocent on all accused, cool. You're not going to sign him because he's a gambling problem, really?
Well, no, that's the
Really?
thing. But the thing is that from the Sharks' perspective is that they may not have a choice because if the entire team doesn't want him there, regardless of
Yeah,
whether
but I
he's
mean,
innocent or not,
if you're another
right?
team though, and
There would be a lot of teams if he's found innocent of all charges. There will be a lot of teams, especially if the Sharks buy him out. There will be a lot of teams that will reach
take
out to him,
him, yeah,
and
100%.
some of these franchises are going to be like, well, we also want to put you in a program to kind of help you.
He'll have to
Um,
go through the player assistance program,
right.
guarantee it.
Right, of course, and I think some team would be willing to do that. I do believe that, and I
Oh,
think
100%.
to me personally, he has to go to a small market. I think that would be better for him.
Yeah, I
Whatever that
think
small
so.
market might be, I think it would be better for him.
My biggest interest is Mario Ferraro. I love
Good
what I
player.
saw from him last year. I'm really excited to see what his next steps are, but I'm super excited for that. Obviously, William Eklund, I'm excited for to see what he can do. I know a lot of Ottawa
I
fans
feel like
wanted
it's
him.
early for him to make it into the NHL. I mean, like that. I
Hey,
feel, but then again, you don't have a lot of depth on the left side anyway.
yeah,
So
so like, it is what it is.
baptism by
But
fire, I guess. And then
yeah,
also, look, the Sharks are going to finish probably second to last in this division. I mean, this is not a good team at all. I mean, unless these main core guys can turn back the clock to like even just 2019. I mean, that's possible, but no, this is going to be a long year for the Sharks.
oh, 100%. Moving on to the Seattle Kraken entering their first season. I have them making the playoffs.
So do
I
I.
have them slotting in hot in the division
Mm-hmm.
because of their goaltending. I think Philip Grubauer and I think it's crazy that Drager is getting $3.5 million for a year for 3 years, and he's played like 38 career NHL games. I really think that is ridiculous.
I remember that, like when they signed him to that contract, you initially were like,
I lost my shit.
yeah,
I
you
not
were
even
like,
gonna lie.
like why are they doing this? Like why?
Like, why are you signing him to 3.5 million when he's played 38 career games?
I don't think
Ridiculous.
Seattle knew. Here's the thing. I don't think Seattle knew that Grubauer was going to be available. I really don't.
Probably.
I think that they
Probably.
thought. I think that they looked at that and they said, "All right, we're going to go with Drieger, and then we'll probably have like a young guy." But
You're
once they
probably gonna
saw
look
that,
at Drieger and DeCourt as your core, as your
right,
goaltending tandem.
and once they saw that that Grubauer was available, they said, "Well, we have a lot of cap space. Let's just do
May
it.
as well
Let's
take
just
it.
like
May as well
why
take a
not?"
shot. If he
And
says no, he says no, right? Like, what's the
right.
worst thing that can happen?
And look,
Um,
does Grubauer go to a less talented team than where he was in Colorado? Yes, but I feel like
somewhat.
personally, this is that opportunity for Grubauer to show that he's actually one of the better goaltenders in the league because he went from Washington, a team that was loaded and obviously won the cup, to Colorado, who had a tremendous
But
defense.
he wasn't part of that cup run, was he?
Well, no, he was the backup. He started. If you remember, he started the playoffs as the starter,
Right.
and then Hopi came in afterwards.
Yeah.
He goes to Colorado. He helps them make the playoffs a couple times, and he looks really, really good. But he's not getting appreciated enough because of the fact that he plays with such a talented team. Now he goes to Seattle, who's not as talented, and is an expansion team, and he can really, shine like Marc-Andre Fleury did when he went to Vegas.
Yeah. And I'm excited for this team.
There's
You know,
just
you
so much
have
fun. There's just so much to like about Seattle
yeah,
in general.
you're
Not
like
like Vegas.
defense.
This is totally different. There's so much to like.
You look at their defense. Giordano, Larson, Oleksiak, Dunn, Saucy, and then Fleury. That's a solid defense in my opinion. That's a solid top
I
six.
agree. Yeah.
Not a cup winning top six, in my opinion,
Obviously.
but that's a playoff top six.
Right.
Their actual, top nine, you have some question marks, Schwartz, McCain, and Eberle are going to be your performers. And then you have Marcus Johansson, Alexander Wenberg, Kel Yarncroke as your second line.
Mm-hmm.
Tanev, Greike, Donskoy, Donato, Shahan, Appleton. I think they're actually pretty balanced, but it's going to be interesting to see who produces for them.
My only criticism, really, of Seattle was the contract that they gave to Jaden Schwartz. I don't really know if they think that he's going to be able to get back to the level that he was 2 years ago. But I mean, he may be able to produce more because he'll be on the top six, because he's obviously going to be one of the main focal points of this team. I mean, it may work out. But
Yeah.
when I look at Seattle as a whole, this is a team that definitely can make the playoffs. And it's primarily due to the fact that, again, this division is so weak. That they could just be one of those teams that wins a couple games here and there and kind of is able to be competitive. I mean, granted, it's preseason. We obviously understand this, but I mean, they look pretty good. Some of their guys look pretty good. Also, like getting Donato on that professional contract, he really proved himself this preseason. Like he really proved himself to be like a really solid contributor for this Seattle team. And I think there's going to be so much backing with the Kraken, from the fans' perspective, that Seattle's going to get off to a really good start. Not in the same level that Vegas did, even though it's still possible, but I think that they're going to have a really successful first year, and they're
I
really
think
going to
so.
do a lot of damage. Like they're really going to do a lot of things that are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to be an interesting team to watch. I think they make the playoffs, but not a lot to talk about really. Like their team is very quiet right now. It's going to be interesting to see how the season goes. Moving over to the Vancouver Canucks. Man, this team crapped the bed 10 ways to Sunday last year. Obviously, using Elias Pettersson did not help. But overall, that team was just hot garbage last year. Nothing
And then obviously
went
COVID
well.
for 2 weeks killed them.
Yeah, nothing seemed to go well with them. They brought in Connor Garland and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I love that trade. I think it was a little bit of an overpayment with that first overall going back to Arizona. But and you're also adding, Larson for 6 years, and I think Arizona came out with the win.
Mm-hmm.
But if Larson can get back to what he was 2-3 years ago, you're giving Hughes you're putting Hughes in a better situation to succeed because he's not the guy on that defense anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting Garland beside a Pettersson and Besser.
Right.
Overall, I think this team is going to fight for the playoffs. But again, it comes down to goaltending, and is Thatcher Demko and Yaroslav Halak a tandem that can bring this team to a playoffs? And do they have the depth to withstand losing, Elias Pettersson or, Bo Horvat? And is Niels Hoglander going to take that next step? There's so many question marks on this team, especially in the bottom six, where I don't know. I'm not sure. I think they have what? 1, 2, 3. They have 6, 8. They have 9 guys, according to Daily Faceoff, back from last year.
Yeah. This is a year where I feel like, and I know people have said it before, but I really think that if this is not a successful year, Jim Benning might actually get fired for real. I think he might actually get fired because he now just gave those massive contracts to Pettersson and
Hughes.
Hughes. I was going to say Luke Hughes, Quinn Hughes. And they got this core got to get it going here, man. And look, obviously getting COVID with the variant was obviously horrible, but there was problems way before that. They just got off to a bad start. We had high expectations after what they did in the bubble. Moving into last season, we had a lot of high expectation that this team was going to really, really make some noise in the postseason, and they really faltered. I mean, they really did. But you look at it and you say to yourself, this is still an incredibly talented team that is a little bit shaky on the back end, and also goaltending. Thatcher Demko has to show that he's the number one guy. You're going to get solid goaltending from Halak. This is just a foregone conclusion. Halak is going to be back there winning them some games. But it's going to be ultimately up to Thatcher Demko proving that he's the number one guy. Quinn Hughes has got to come out and have really a year where he could really prove himself as a potential Norris Trophy candidate. Look, if Adam Fox can win a Norris Trophy at his age, there's no excuse that a guy like Quinn Hughes can't do the same thing. Because I think Quinn Hughes is a little bit more talented than Adam
Oh,
Fox.
I love Fox. I think he's the best overall defenseman. I think he's better
What's
than
not to
Makar.
like about Adam Fox? Like, even though he's on the Rangers and obviously being a Devils fan, what is not to like about Adam Fox other than he plays for the Rangers? Literally
He
nothing.
kind of forced himself to New York, which I don't really blame
So
him.
did Jimmy Vesey, and look how that
Yeah,
happened.
well, and that's the thing is that like that the player has the ability to do it. So like I'm not even mad at him for doing it.
No, I get that. And look,
I
he's
personally
gonna
love
get
him.
paid. He's going to get paid at some point. Maybe not
Sure,
by the
he's a
Rangers,
10
considering that literally just an hour ago, Mika
They
Zibanejad
announced.
got that
Yeah,
massive contract from the Rangers.
yeah.
So
It's going to be interesting. And
who knows?
realistically, we'll talk about it in a little bit when we talk about the Rangers. Let's save some things for them. We'll move over to Vegas.
We still got to finish this division that we're still on.
Yeah. We spent like 30 minutes. This is going to be a long episode. It's going to be broken up in a couple pieces. I'm not going to lie.
Fair enough.
But we got the West. We got the last team of the Pacific, the Vegas Golden Knights. And I'm going to straight up say it. The only reason they win this division is because they're in this Pacific division. That's it. That's the only reason why they win the division is because of who's in the division.
Yeah.
I honestly think that this team is going to be blown up in the next 2 years. If they cannot.
Next year. It's got to be next year.
If they don't make it to the Cup final this year or next season, you're looking at it like, okay, what happens with Pacioretty? What happens with Stone? What happens with Marchessault, Carlson, Smith, Stevenson? Right. Their cap situation is not good. I'll just say that. Like it's not the best. Like they're $5 million. Their projected cap hit rate is at $86.624 million right now. They have Riley Smith and Chandler and Matthias Janmark as free agents this offseason. But you have a bunch of RFAs. You have Brady McNabb, who, if he has a solid year, could see a raise above his $2.5 million that he's getting.
Oh yeah, 100%. I look at it here. Here's the thing with Vegas. This is the big thing, and I saw this actually. I think I saw it on Instagram, and it really kind of threw me off. Because I don't know where this source came from, but apparently the Golden Knights president, George McPhee, intended for Marc-Andre Fleury to find out that he was traded on Twitter as punishment for his agent trying to, quote, sabotage by telling teams Fleury might retire. So now we're starting to get more information that Fleury
McPhee's a piece of shit.
I know, that's the thing. The Golden Knights, I'm sorry, they have been given every opportunity in the book from the time that they became a team to be good, to win a cup and everything. And what have they done? They've kicked away opportunity after opportunity. Yeah, okay. They weren't as good as the Washington Capitals in 2018. The Capitals were on a mission to win the cup. Ovi was on a mission to win the cup. Nobody was stopping them.
And I feel bad for Fleury because Fleury played really well that series.
Fleury was great. But then you go to 2019, you had a 3-1 lead on San Jose, and you had a 3-0 lead in Game 7, and you lost.
You choked it. You choked it away.
You go to the bubble, and you lose to freaking Dallas
after
in
almost to Vancouver. Like, let's be honest.
Very next year.
They almost lost to Vancouver before they lost to Dallas.
Did they not have to go to 7 games with Vancouver?
They did.
They had to go to 7 games after being down 3-2. People forget Vancouver was up 3-2 in that series.
Yeah, Demko looked fantastic.
And then last year, you're playing the Montreal Canadiens. You have so much going for you, and you still lose.
And you don't even go 7 on either of those series.
Would they go 5?
Yeah, I think they lost 6. 5. They lost 4-2 to Dallas, and then 4-1 to Montreal.
They went out with a whimper, and they had so much talent, and they
just came out beating Colorado. Like, how do you beat Colorado and then lose to Montreal?
Because they completely took, like everybody else did except Tampa, they took Montreal for granted and said, dude, come on, they're not this good.
To be fair, I don't think anyone was beating Tampa. I don't care who you have. I don't think anyone
of course
was
not. Look, we were all hoping for it. I think as an underdog fan, you're all hoping that maybe because also we want to see Canada win a cup at some point.
Yeah, but not Montreal.
But well,
I mean, to be fair,
I can't speak for you. I can only speak for myself.
See, I was kind of rooting for Montreal just because I wasn't rooting, but I wouldn't have been upset because Carey Price and Shea Weber deserve a cup.
Right.
So if they were to win the cup, I wouldn't be upset about it because they deserve a cup ring, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We've seen Lundqvist retire without a cup. We've seen Luongo retire without a cup. Matt Sundin, Daniel. We've seen so many great players, like Hall of Fame players, retire without a cup.
Right.
That you look at players like Weber and Price, who are both most likely first or second ballot Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking like, man, this is probably the only chance they would have got at winning the cup.
Yeah. But going back to Vegas, like now you treated a superstar goaltender the worst way that one could.
Like absolute crap.
I've never seen a franchise just
Pittsburgh.
complete, and it's not just Fleury too. Marchessault, Mark Stone, Pat Giretti. This entire core has been shit on by this organization. They were all afraid they were going to get traded. We thought when Schmidt got traded, we go, oh, okay, this is the beginning. Now they're going to really go crazy here.
Nope.
If they don't get it done, I said it last year, and it's still relevant now. If they don't get it done, and I'm not talking about getting to the finals. No, they have to win the whole damn thing. If they don't do it, all these guys are gone. I'm sorry. The only guy that's going to last, there's only two guys. It's going to be, you got Pietrangelo. He's stuck there.
Yeah, Pietrangelo and Stone are the only two non-movable deals.
And you know that people are going to be banging the doors for Shea Theodore. You know damn well they're going to be
100%.
Because I've said it before, Shea Theodore, Norris Trophy candidate, in my opinion, when he's healthy. We don't know what his situation is, but when he's healthy, this guy's one of the best defensemen in the game. I'm just pointing that out. But you have every opportunity in the book this year. This is a year where you can legitimately run the table.
And they're not going to.
If you don't, which I did, right, I'm with you, then this has been a failure from the start, and you got to blow it up. And you're talking about trying to get Jack Eichel. Well, here's how you do it. Stop. If you really want Jack Eichel, if you really want to be crazy, you got to give up Peyton Krebs. You have to.
Yeah, you have to.
Because Buffalo's not gonna take anything less than at least Peyton Krebs is the only reason that Eichel is not in Vegas right now. Is the only reason.
Well, to be fair, they were trying to get when they were trying to get Carlson out of Ottawa, they wanted Cody Glass. They wanted Cody Glass or Suzuki.
And what happened?
No, they wanted Cody Glass, and they're like, no, we'll give you Suzuki or Brandstrom.
Where are those two guys now?
None of them. None of their first three first round picks in 2017 play for the organization.
Nope. Oh, and by the way, who was the best player for the Canadians against Vegas last year?
Suzuki.
That would be Nick Suzuki.
It was amazing. I love it. I hate McPhee.
So for me,
I hate Crimpton. I hate Vegas. I don't even hate Vegas fans. I just think that organization has been run poorly because I hate McPhee.
Vegas fans are fine, okay? Vegas fans are fine.
They can be.
The way the organization is run is what's pissing off everybody, okay? Yeah. That's what's pissing off everybody because they've been given every opportunity that so many teams, including ours, Shane, would die for. We would die to be in that position right now.
100%.
We're not. But we're not, and they are. And look, they're going to win this division by a lot, probably. Because, but can they get in the playoffs? Can they actually live up to the hype that they have? I don't think they will, but I do think they'll win the division because this division is super weak.
Oh, 100%. We're going to take a quick 30-second break before jumping into the Central Division. It's been about 40 minutes on the Pacific, so we'll try speeding it up a little.
Let's speed it up a little.
But we'll take a quick 30-second break or less before getting into the Central. All right, we are back, and we're going to jump right into the Central Division, starting with the Arizona Coyotes. They bringing back the full Kachino look, looking fresh. I love it.
And now they're in a new division.
They're in a new division. They're in the Central since Seattle has taken their spot in the Pacific. Man, this team looks horrible, though. This team looks like a dumpster fire, but to give them credit, that's exactly what they want. Because they are in the race for Shane Wright out of Kingston with the Frontenacs. And they were able to get quite a bit for what they took on. We talk about, the trade that sent Garland and Larson to Vancouver. They got Louis Eriksson, Jay Beagle, Anton Roussel all for 1 year, but they got the 9th overall pick and was able to grab Dylan Guenther out of the Edmonton Oil Kings.
Dude, what a pick at number 9. I was
Dylan so mad. Guenther. I was so mad.
Shane, you and I talked about this. This is why last year's draft was so like, everybody's like, what? How did he fall this far? Well, it's obvious. Nobody could scout anybody.
Yeah, like I was so mad.
I think Jesper Wallstedt fell to 20 when he was projected to go top 5 or top 10.
Yeah, I was so mad. I was like, he was right there. He was right there. When I was surprised that McTavish was taken 3rd.
Well,
and I'm like,
I still like what Ottawa did in that first round, though.
I like Boucher. I think he's great. But I was on the McTavish or Guenther train all season. There was really no one else. I was like, these are the 2 players that I want Ottawa to draft, and they got neither of them. And I was pissed. But don't get me wrong, I love Boucher, but we'll talk about that later. That's another episode.
You know what the biggest question mark is, Shane, for the Coyotes? It's not about how they're going to do this year or the uniforms or anything like that. It's simply this. Are they going to be in Arizona after this season? That is the question.
They'll be in the state of Arizona. I mean, where they are.
Where is that money coming from for Tempe?
I don't know.
Like somebody was saying to me, "Oh, the taxpayers." I'm like, there's so many people in that state that have said before that they don't want anything to do with the Coyotes anymore.
My understanding is, why the hell aren't they playing with where the Suns play?
I have no idea. I actually thought that,
why haven't they just why? Why? It makes no sense to me. They should be playing there.
My brain hurts whenever we talk about the Coyotes because, and this is obviously for Corey and Richie because that's what they spend all of their time doing.
I feel bad for them.
Well, that's why a lot of their episodes are not even talking about the Coyotes. They talk about something else, which I love, by the way. And you guys should definitely go check them out because they are a riot. But
I'm excited to see what they do. They have Louis Eriksson, Jay Beagle, Anton Roussel all last year's.
They're a fun team. They're going to be for some reason they're going to be kind of fun to watch.
They have Andrew Ladd, Phil Kessel.
Andrew Ladd's definitely playing. Have we confirmed that he's definitely playing?
I would expect him to. He's not on daily fantasy, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't.
How long has it been? 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years?
The Islanders have basically pulled the Rangers with Wade Redden and buried him in the AHL.
Right.
But I'm expecting Arizona to finish bottom of this division. They're going to be fun. You're going to see a lot of Keller, Krause, and Hayden. And
they're going to look good doing it with the uniforms. They're going to look good being bad.
Chytron is going to be good. Like, they have pieces. They're going to move a lot of these guys they brought in. I have no expectations for these guys, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I hope they pick Shane Wright because I don't want him to go to Buffalo. I would feel bad for him going to Buffalo. Man, I'm excited to watch those uniforms.
The one thing I will say this, though, Bill Armstrong has officially decided he wants to be the Sam Presti of the NHL, where he just collects so many first-round picks, so many picks, so that for the next 5 to 6 years, the future of the NHL is all based in Arizona. Because if you look at all the picks, just picks that Armstrong got this offseason,
it's ridiculous.
It's a lot. It's a lot. They got a first-round pick for Ekman Larson and Garland. That was a hell of a move by Bill Armstrong.
Yeah.
And they got a pretty decent return for Christian Dvorak as well.
Yeah, they got a first and a third.
They got to thank, there are 2 teams that now have to thank Carolina for doing what they did. You got Montreal, who was able to have enough cap space to get Christian Dvorak, and Arizona, who gets a first and a second.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Was that first round pick? Did they give that?
It's the best. It's the best of either Montreal or Carolina. It's the best of either Montreal's or Carolina's.
Okay.
If they both end up top 10, it's the worst of the 2.
Oh, that's awful. Which I hope doesn't happen.
I don't think it has. But
I think we all want deep down for Arizona to be good at some point. I think we all just kind of hope
100%. It's going to be like in 3 years when Matthews
2012 though, we really had a cup final. Do you know how bad it would have been for the NHL if it was New Jersey versus Arizona?
That would have been fantastic.
That was a fun team that Arizona had too that year.
But moving on from Arizona, because there's really not much to talk about it. We got the Chicago Blackhawks listed, being held down the by Marc-Andre Fleury. You got Alex DeBrincat, Patty Kane, Jonathan Toews is back.
Yes, Taser
He's
is
back for the
You think
year.
he makes the Olympic team?
No, I don't think so.
Mm.
I mean, I feel like he's going to be on the roster, like the initial roster, but I don't think he's going to be one of the guys who ends up going.
I would
Unless
like to
there's
see
an
him be
injury.
there. I mean, I personally would like to see him there, but
Same.
we also got to see how he comes. Remember, he didn't play all last year, so we got to see how he performs.
Yeah, we got to see how he
From
performs.
what I heard from Chicago people, it sounds
He's
like in
looked
the
good.
preseason, Tays looked good.
Yeah,
like he looked like he was good.
my surprise though is that according to Daily Faceoff, they have Tyler Johnson centering that top line between DeBrincat and Kane. Taves is with
I love it.
Kubalik and Kurashev, and then Doc is between Hagel and Godet.
Now that's a big question mark right there. Kirby Doc, who has been dealing with a bunch of injuries. How many games did he play last year? Like 5?
Yeah,
6?
something like that.
I took him in the last round of fantasy. Just at a hunch.
Hey, if he has a good year, if he can stay healthy, it's going to be a good year.
Yeah, and look, and obviously the thing that throws me off, Shane, I don't know if it threw you off, but Stan Bowman said at the end of last season that this team was going to start rebuilding. This is not a rebuild. If anybody thinks that this was a rebuild, this was not. This was retooling because he got Seth Jones, which was like,
okay. He got both Jones. He got Caleb and Seth.
Well, unfortunately, Caleb's out for a couple months now with an injury, which is unfortunate. And then he gets the gift of all gifts, a Vezina Trophy winner for literally nothing.
Yeah,
literally nothing.
See, I have a feeling they make the playoffs. I think it's going to be 5 from the Central, 3 from the Pacific. That's how I feel like it's going to be.
Isn't it the top 4 though from each division, or am I dreaming there?
No, it's the top 3 plus the 2 wild card.
Oh, it's top 3. I was thinking top 4, maybe because I'm thinking last year's.
Last year was top 4. It was the top 4 from each, but the current way it's top 3 from each division, then the next best 2. I have them slotting in as that bottom wild card spot. But they could easily finish top 3 in this division. I think the division is super close. That there's not a lot of separation between that 5th spot and that 2nd spot. So my thing is Riley Stillman. I've been a huge fan of him. I'm annoyed that the Devils drafted his brother in the 2nd round. Again, another guy that I wanted Ottawa to grab, and people were like, "Oh, you're crazy. He's going to drop to like the 3rd."
Which guy was this?
Stillman. Sudbury. I wanted him, so I was like, man, okay, if he's available in the 2nd round, we got to take him. And New Jersey's like, haha, we're taking him in the 1st round.
And the funny thing about it is that most Devils fans were like upset about it because we didn't take the guy the Islanders took in the 2nd round. I was trying to
Roddy?
Yeah. And I was like, look, here's the thing. If the Devils really wanted Stillman, you might as well get him now and not think like, oh, someone else is going to take him.
Exactly.
Someone won't take him. If he's there, just take him. If you like him so much, just take him. And you know what? In the Prospects Challenge and also in
he looked good.
He looked really good. And guess what? He's an alternate captain in Sudbury this year. Yeah. So why don't we just relax a little bit? And
I'm surprised they sent him to Sudbury. I figured they would have sent him to
he signed his entry-level deal, but what they're doing is that they want it to start next season. So they're giving him, it's kind of one of those, because again, look, the Devils still have a lot of cap space, but they want to make sure that everything progresses correctly.
And they probably want him playing at the Worlds and whatnot.
Look, Dawson Mercer signed his entry-level deal and then played all of last season in the QMJHL. So, I mean, it's not like, because I think also they look at Stillman
like Ridley Gregg and Ostapchuk in New Jersey. Right. So.
And they look at Stillman as a guy that could potentially make the team next year. So you might as well have him start his entry-level deal next season when he makes the team.
Yeah. Going back to Chicago, right. You have Jake McCabe out of Buffalo, who did well in Buffalo, should be able to anchor that second pairing with Murphy. But this team looks really good, and I'm excited to watch them. I think they're going to make a lot of noise in that Central Division.
I really like Jeremy Colleton, Shane. Like I've been a big fan of Jeremy Colleton when he's the youngest coach in the NHL by
I'm gonna wait
considerable amount, by the way.
I'm gonna wait and see what happens this year. I think this is probably the healthiest team that he's had. This is probably the best team he's had to coach. So I'm gonna wait until this season before having any verdict on if I like him or not.
I was what impressed me the most was how they performed in the bubble. Obviously, yeah, they played they played Edmonton, and Edmonton was obviously not going to go very far, but still, like, they look good. The two guys that stand out to me the most, Shane, are Dominic Kubalik, who I think has the potential to be a really, really, really talented player for years to come, a really good two-way guy. And also, everybody talks about Fleury this, Fleury that. They still have Kevin Lankinen, ladies and gentlemen,
who's going to do well.
Is really good. Like, he's really good. And he even said it himself. This shows you how much confidence he has. He says, I still want to be the number one guy.
Yeah.
I still believe I'm the number one guy. Which, if you mean to tell me you have a guy who won a Vezina trophy and a young goaltender who believes in himself that much, and you were able to move on from Malcolm Subban, you're in pretty good shape on the back end. So that's going to be one of the more interesting goaltending tandems in the league. And I think that Chicago is going to be really, really good, particularly on the defensive side, except Seth Jones is not the greatest at playing defense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Shane has been a big proponent on our group chats for months that the worst contract this offseason was given to Seth Jones.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's going to
even from an analytical perspective, it's
a bad contract. Like, he's not a bad, like if you actually look at his numbers and you compare it to other players, he's relatively on par. That doesn't make the contract any better. It just makes it an overpayment.
Well, look, Chicago wanted him, and then they knew, okay, we can't just get him and then lose him after this season. Like, we have to get him a deal, and they
basically use the Olympics as a way to sign him. I guarantee it. They're like, hey, you sign with us long term, I'll make sure you're part of the Olympic team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I
think he would have picked him anyway, to be honest with you, Shane. I think even
probably, but I don't think he would have been top 3.
No, that's a good point. I
think that was used as a selling point. Moving on to Colorado. The biggest question mark is, can Kemper replace Grubauer? I think that as a whole is probably the biggest question mark that Colorado has. Is Bowen Byram NHL ready? He's expected to make the opening night roster. Will he be a substantial defenseman for them?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with Alex Newhook? Can he be a top 9 player right out of the gate?
I think it's early for him. I really do. Luckily, this team is very deep in the forward group, and I think the big, like, for me at least, I wonder how much they're going to miss Ryan Graves. I mean, they had no choice. They were going to lose him either to Seattle or they had to trade him, and they ended up trading him. And they got a second-round pick and a young, solid prospect in Mikhail Maltsev. And I'm honestly like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
He was actually expected to make the opening night roster too.
Maltsev, because Maltsev proved last year he could play in the NHL. Yeah. He proved that. So, I mean, and he's a big body dude. He's a much more physical player than people talk about enough. So I think that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, you brought up the goaltending. That's the biggest question mark. But I think because of how good the defense is usually for Colorado, I think Kemper is going to be fine.
If he can stay healthy.
Who is their backup? I'm just trying to remember.
Francois.
Is it if Francois is healthy now?
Hurt. I think he's hurt, so I'm not sure who they have backing.
Do they have they traded for the guy from Buffalo, the young guy who has a very long last name. That was what I remember. If you remember that, they traded like a second-round pick or something for him. I don't remember his name.
Wasn't it last year? I can't remember.
It was last year. That's what I'm saying. Like, but isn't he still on the team?
I think so. Give me 1 second. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Jonas Johansson, yeah.
Johansson, yeah.
Yeah, who I think right now will probably be the backup with Francois being out.
Yeah.
Remember, guys, there is no taxi squad this year as far as the season starts. They said
which is stupid. They should be a taxi squad. I think they should.
As long as COVID still exists, honestly.
Even without it, I think the taxi squad's great. I think
the taxi squad is good because these guys are still practicing with the team.
You should also be allowed. The roster should be 24.
Yeah,
but mandatory you carry through, and that 24th spot must be a third goal. Get rid of the EBUT completely. Just have that mandatory third goaltender.
I agree. So, I mean, Colorado to me is the best team in the NHL. To me, they're the deepest team. They're the most talented team, and I think that they're going to not only win this division, but I think they're going to make a really good attempt at winning the President's Trophy because I think this is that year. And Nathan
McKinnon, between them and Tampa.
And I just want to say this: Nathan McKinnon better be getting his due this season. I mean, this is ridiculous that he's been this many years into the league, he's been playing this well, and he's still not getting recognized as one of the better players. Because, and you know what, Shane, you're going to be happy. I'm going to say this: wait till he gets to the Olympics. That's what I'm saying.
Dude's the second best player in the league.
I mean, to me, if once he gets in the Olympics, he's going to prove himself on the international stage that he is an awesome player.
He's the second best player in the league behind McDavid. And if he were to hit the open market, if he were to hit the open market, you are paying this man $12 million easily. Like, and no one would blink an eye. Dude's had in the last
nobody's going to judge
years, he was on pace for 100 points every year for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Even this year, he was on pace for 100 points. Like,
right.
You are paying for a top end quality player, which you can make an argument. There's only maybe 1, 2, or 3 players max ahead of him.
100%.
You are paying minimum 11.5 mil.
And you look at it, what McKinnon has proven as well is that you don't have to be a star right away into the NHL to become a star. Remember, his first 2 or 3 years, he was okay, but he wasn't.
3 years were trash.
Right. He was really struggling his first 3 years. And then look at the last couple of years. He's developed into a superstar in this league.
Yeah, he's turned from a kid to a man. I think people forget that he was 18 when he came into the league.
So can we all agree that not every first overall pick has to be the second coming of Jesus Christ?
100%.
You know what I'm saying? I've been trying to say this about Nico Hischier and also Jack Hughes that, look, they still are very young, and they still can develop into star players.
Hischier looks like a friggin' gem. What are you talking? Like, I watch Hischier play.
Well, it's because Shane. You understand this? It's because of the fact. Look who got picked 3 and 4 in that year: Elias Pettersson and Miro Heiskanen. That is why people
No, it was Makar that was 4, wasn't it?
Oh, actually, you might be right. It was
Makar that was 4.
There's 3 there: Makar,
Heiskanen,
Pettersson, and Heiskanen.
Yeah,
all of those guys, or Heiskanen and then Pettersson. I think it was. There was some. Because
I think Colorado dropped to 4th. They picked Makar.
Right.
Pettersson, I think, was 5th or something.
All of that. So that's why because those guys got going much sooner than Nico did. But you know what? Nico can still become that talented player. So, guys, if you have a young, talented player that is taking longer than you would have liked to develop, don't immediately just assume he's a bust. Understand that some guys they take a little bit longer to get going. And Nathan McKinnon is the prime example of that.
Yeah, I mean, Nico Hischier was 1st, Patrick was 2nd, Heiskanen was 3rd, Makar was 4th, and then Pettersson was 5th. But then you look at who else was picked. Then you have Cody Glass at 6th that Vegas just completely destroyed. Elias Anderson, who's his own worst enemy for the longest time. Casey Middlestat, that up until 2 years ago was looking like a complete bust. Michael Rasmussen, Owen Tippett, Velarde, Netcash, most of these guys, very few of them have seen consistent playing time across the board. And it's I think that people have this idea if you're picked first overall, you can jump into the NHL right away. It doesn't work like that. McKinnon has shown that you need expecting an 18-year-old to come into the NHL and dominate. You're not McDavid. You're not Matthews. Very few first-round picks can come into the NHL right away and just dominate consistently from day one.
Right. But all in all, just talk about Colorado, going back to Colorado. Yeah, I mean, other than Tampa, they're the best team in the NHL.
100%. Moving on to Dallas, and this team looks like a gong show. This team looks like absolute garbage.
Yeah.
You have Tudobin and Holpe, according to Daily Faceoff, even though I feel like Ottinger should be in there.
Yeah.
You brought in Ryan Sutter.
Mm-hmm.
Klingberg and Heiskanen are going to be solid, but realistically, I look at this team and I'm like, damn, you're not going to win many games. You're going to be competitive.
Yeah.
But I don't see this team taking that step to make the playoffs in this Central Division.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about Dallas because Dallas is kind of just there. Like you said, they're going to be a competitive team. They still have, Tyler Seguin, who's coming back from injury. They have Joe Pavelski, who was arguably your best player last year, and that was a tremendous move by Dallas to go get him. Defense is going to be solid. Goaltending is the biggest question mark, and it's if you don't have a good offensive line in the NFL, if you don't have a good goaltending you're not going to win a whole lot of games. You're going to lose a lot of games, and you're going to put yourself in a very, very difficult position. So I think overall, Dallas is going to be a team that's going to win some games here and there, but I can't see them being a top 3, top 4, top 5 team, to be honest with you. It's just kind of hard to say.
Agreed. It's going to be interesting to see. But moving on from Dallas, because neither of us really have much to say outside of the, like, I feel bad for Stars fans. It's going to be a long season for you guys. The Nashville Predators. Minnesota Wild is next in line.
Minnesota Wild, yep.
Minnesota Wild. Marco Rossi, their top pick from a year ago, heading to Iowa, which makes sense considering he hasn't played hockey in 18 months. He's coming off a serious injury, where people were sure if he was even going to play hockey again, because how COVID impacted
people
him.
weren't sure he was gonna live, let alone play hockey.
So COVID really derailed his development. So he's starting in Iowa, which I'm not surprised with. It's great for him. You get his reps, you get back into it. He'll be called up by the end of the year. And by the end of the year, I mean, by the end of 2021, I would not be surprised if he's called up within the next, the first 2 months of the season. Kaprizov getting I think is a ridiculous overpayment at $9 million for a year for 5 years after 55 games in the NHL. Ridiculous.
Well, they panicked. I mean, look, they took the bait that Kaprizov's agent said, like,
KHL.
Right, he's going to get what was it like? Didn't he say he's going to get 30 million for 1 year or some crap like that? He was going to get a crap load of money for 1 year.
Maybe Kaprizov shows that this year that last year wasn't a fluke. You're buying you're buying 4 UFA years off of him, so it makes sense to give him that mill because he's probably going to be worth it by the end of the contract, but it's still ridiculous with the amount of experience that he's played. I have heart trouble. I don't see this Minnesota team doing very well though.
Really?
Personally, I just
like
don't
Minnesota a lot, to be honest with you.
I like Minnesota. I just don't see them doing well. I like their goaltending, but again, I think it comes down to the overall depth. And that top 6 is great. How does Fiala do? And I just have questions about their ability to score outside of their top 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously depth is such a key thing for a lot of these situations, and I think you got to hope from Minnesota's perspective that maybe their top 6 carries them a little bit more than maybe the organization would like. But I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that Minnesota has that you have to like. I think personally, goaltending future wise, having Kaapo Kakkonen and then obviously Jesper Wallstedt, which was an absolute steal for Minnesota in the draft last year, is going to be a lot of fun to see. The big thing for me is Kevin Fiala, to be honest with you, Shane, because
that's fair.
Did he end up getting that? I'm trying to remember. Did he end up getting a contract or no?
He got a 1 year, $5.1 million deal.
I believe that Kevin Fiala is going to have another really good year, and he's going to basically put pressure on Minnesota, whether it's during the season or at the end of the year, to look. I once again proved that I can play at this high level. You need to pay me, and I think that's basically what that situation is. The other thing is this: they were able to move on from Parise and Suter. Is that kind of do they take off the shackles? Is Minnesota finally set free where they don't have to worry about that, and they can take that next step with the core that they have? Who knows?
Probably.
But the one guy, Shane, that you got to keep your eye on is one of the most underrated players in our game today, Eriksson Ek. Very underrated player.
I'm excited to see his next steps. I think he's going to be very well for us or for Minnesota, and I'm interested. I have Minnesota making the playoffs. I just don't think it's going to be easy for them to make the playoffs. I think they are going to win a lot. You're not going to see this team blowing people out. They're not going to win games and you're going to watch them be like, they're the best team they're the better of the two teams. They're going to win games 2-1, 3-2. If you want to beat Minnesota, they can't get into a shootout with you. They're not going to win games 5-4, 6-5. they're going to win the 3-2, 2-1 games. And they're going to win a lot of them. But those are the games I would expect to see from Minnesota this year.
100%.
But moving on from Minnesota, we got the Nashville Predators, the team with the ugliest jerseys in the league. They have some players that really need to step up. Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene being two of them. They lost Ryan Ellis. They went to Philly, which I think was great for Philly.
Yep.
They got brought in back Philip Myers. They have Dante Fabro, who's expected to hit the next step. Cody Glass and Philip Tomasino expected to be paired together on that third line with Nick Cousins. I'm excited to see how that turns out. I would have liked to see them with Tolvanen instead on that third line. I think those three would have meshed well. But man, Nashville, first year without Pekka Rinne. You have Yuri Saros and David Riddick as your goaltending tandem. I have them missing the playoffs because I don't see Duchene and Johansson living up to those contracts. I just don't see it.
There's one bit that you left out that is very hard for me to talk about, and that is the man behind the bench. I have experience with the man behind the bench.
I forgot about him.
We don't even mention his name in Devil's lore. He is he who shall not be named. For all you Harry Potter fans out there, he's not that good of a coach. I don't know why people think that he's better than what he actually is. He's a defensive-minded coach that is going to hold back a lot of the offense that this team actually has. And
agreed.
I'm not, they made the playoffs in the bubble. Whoopie-doo. But they lost to Arizona. And that didn't surprise me at all that they lost to Arizona. I mean, you got to call it like it is. Nashville is an okay team with a hell of a fan base. That atmosphere in Nashville is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. But when you look at the team itself, I do not like what I see from Nashville. I don't have them making the playoffs, and I don't have them really finishing that high either, because quite frankly, their coach is going to hold them back. And Philip Forsberg, he better try to get the hell out of there, because honestly, he's better off going somewhere else.
Yeah. Nashville fans are in for a rough year. I'm not going to lie. I think it's going to be a really rough year. Moving on to St. Louis. I think they finished.
That was a good reaction there, Shane. Move on to St. Louis and then just go.
They're a team that should finish behind Colorado for second in the division. They bring in Brandon Saad. They bring in Buchnevich. Jake Neighbors has made a name for himself and should make the opening night roster. Their defense looks solid. Tarasenko's still there. Their goaltending should be solved. Binnington should have a good year. I just have so much faith in this team that I feel bad for Blues fans, because if it's the biggest boomer bust of the entire league. Outside of Toronto, this is the biggest boom. They have the ability to either skyrocket and finish, top 5 in the league, finish behind Colorado, or they will just plummet. And I'm
leaning more. Shane's not gonna like this. I'm leaning more towards they're gonna bust, because their defense, losing Vince Dunn is gonna hurt. Is really gonna hurt, honestly. They locked up Colton Parayko, which is great, but how many more years of that type of play does he have left? And honestly, Shane, I am not a fan of Jordan Binnington, because after what he did in the playoffs in 2019 and everything, you would have thought he would have gone off of that and continued to be good. In the bubble, he was so bad he got pulled for Jake Allen like twice.
Yeah.
And then last year he struggled a lot as well, and they missed Jake Allen. You know how many Blues fans I know that say, I really wish we did not trade Jake Allen? Yeah, because Jake Allen, before Binnington came along, was supposed to be that number one guy for so long. And they traded him, and now who is even their backup now?
Husso.
You really think you're going to win a lot of games with Husso if he's playing? That's why Binnington's going to play 3/4 of the games, ladies and gentlemen.
Probably.
And
it's just this team has such a boomer bust on it.
Yeah,
and I'm hoping for
they're
a
so
boom.
top 6 heavy though.
But no, they're top. Their forwards are good. It's just I just don't trust. Like, I hope Binnington could just regain his form. He just needs to be half of what he was during that cup run for
He has
them
to stop looking nervous. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
and it's just, this team hurts my head because they have the potential to do so well, and I feel for Blues fans that that are going to watch this team and be like, man, there is so much potential, but
Yeah. I don't know.
we'll wait for we'll do a
Like,
half season recap and see where they're at, but we'll move on. We're gonna do the Winnipeg Jets. We'll finish off the West. Winnipeg Jets finishing off this Central Division. I have them.
big Jets guy.
I have them making the playoffs. Pierre-Luc Dubois needs to have one hell of a season, and their defense, hopefully bringing in, Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt help solidify that defense. They're going to get solid goaltending.
Oh yeah.
But overall, like again, another boomer bust team, in my opinion, where this team can either be one of the best teams in the division, or they're going to be middle of the pack, barely fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Before the All-Star break or the heading into the Olympics. This team has the players, but can they get the results? That's a big question.
I think that this is going to be another one of those years where Hellebuck is going to really carry this team. He's going to have to play a lot. I think he's built to play a lot. He obviously is going to have a lot of pressure on him as well because there's a good chance he's the number one guy for Team USA in the Olympics.
100%.
He's gonna be dog tired, I think, by the time you get to the Olympics. I think that's something to keep in mind. But you look at Winnipeg as a whole, they have a lot of talent on the offensive side. They have one of the most underrated players in the game today, Nikolai Ehlers, who I still don't think gets enough credit for how good he actually is. Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler are still going to be expected to be, two of your top guys. Pierre-Luc Dubois, like you said, Shane, it's put up or shut up. He has to prove that the Jets made the right move to move on from Line A and acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois. He has to come out. But I think Paul Maurice, the way he coaches this team, I think he will have them ready to be ultra competitive right from the start. And I feel very confident that Winnipeg is going to get into the playoffs and get out of this Central Division.
You're more confident than I am in them, that's for sure. But that wraps up our West. It's been an hour and a half on our West Division. So we're gonna take we'll take a review. We didn't really talk about who made the playoffs and where our list was in terms of 1 through 8, but we do have a graphic for it. So here it is. I'm taking Vegas, Calgary, Seattle, Edmonton, Vancouver, Anaheim, LA, San Jose as my 1 through 8. Neil had we had the same division winners.
Right, we have Vegas,
and then
Vancouver, Calgary, Seattle, Edmonton. Yeah, I actually don't think Edmonton makes the playoffs. LA, Anaheim, and San Jose.
Yeah, so we basically have the same bottom 3. He just has LA over Anaheim, and I have Anaheim over LA. I have Calgary finishing second. He has them finishing third. But we still have Seattle and Edmonton finished right ahead of each other, with Seattle finishing above Edmonton. The biggest difference for us, though, is you have Vancouver second.
Yes.
I have fifth.
Yeah, the reason that I have Vancouver second is mainly due to the fact that I feel like that this is such a put up or shut up year for Vancouver. They have so much to prove that I think that they're going to come out of the gates really strong. I think that adding, like you said, Oliver Ekman-Larsson and also bringing Connor Garland, I think will help both on the offensive side and the defensive side. And yeah, having a goaltending tandem of Thatcher Demko, who's going to obviously have to prove that he's a number one guy, and a solid backup in Yaroslav Halak, I think this team is definitely better than it was last year. And I think that they're going to be able to take advantage of what we've talked about, a pretty weak Pacific Division.
That's for sure. Heading over to the Central Division, I have Colorado winning it, St. Louis, Minnesota, Winnipeg rounding out the top 4. The Blackhawks, Stars, Preds, and Arizona rounding out the bottom. I think this is going to be a 5-3, so I think Chicago makes it in as that final wild card seed, and we're going to see just the 3 Vegas, Calgary, and San Jose making it in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
You again, we're relatively the same. There's just some minor differences.
What? Like St. Louis, me having them finish 7th?
That's the big one. And
That's
we
the
talked
big
about
one.
it with St. Louis. Is that like this team is such a boom or
So-
bust?
Right, and you have a more boom, and I have a more bust. That's
Yeah.
pretty much what we're seeing here.
We have the Stars in the same spot, sitting 6th. The Yotes are bottom of the division. You have the
Stars.
Preds sitting 5th.
Yeah.
I have them sitting 7th, and then Chicago at 3rd, Minnesota at 2nd. I got the Minnesota at 3rd, and Chicago sitting 5th. So this division is going to be very tight. I think that middle of the pack,
Yeah.
there's so much that can go either side, but I think Dallas does finish at the outside of the playoffs, and I think we both agree on that.
Agreed.
So, with that being said, there are our Western Conference predictions for how the standings are going to break out. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you for listening to part 1 because this is going to be a part 1. We will have part 2 for the Eastern Division. Hopefully, it won't take an hour and a half.
Let's try to push it. Let's try to make it 30 minutes. Let's see if we could beat our our time.
Yeah, let's see if we can get it under 2.5 hours. But we'll be right back after this quick message, and we'll be back with part 2 for this episode. Another week of the NFL season means another shot to win big at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. The last 0-0 tie in the NFL was 1943. I'd say this is a no-brainer. And don't worry if sportsbooks aren't available in your state or province yet, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at $1 million in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Throw down $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's promo code THPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years of age or older. New Jersey, Indianapolis, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. 5-minute deposit and 1-minute wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbooks for details. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And we are back for part 2 of this extra long episode. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're now moving on to the Eastern Conference predictions. We will try to make this quicker
Oh, God.
than the West, but God damn, this is going to be hard. We are kicking it off with the Carolina, the Jerks, Hurricanes. And they were jerks in the offseason. They signed Jesperi Kotkaniemi to an offer sheet with a $20 signing bonus. And then they say, "Oh, this isn't retribution or revenge for signing Aho."
Yeah, sure.
Cut out with that BS. They get Kotkaniemi. They give up a first and a third round pick to bring him in. He is expected to slot on the wing beside Trocheck and Netcash. This team, Derek Stepan's in at their bottom, like their fourth line center. They bring in Tony DeAngelo and Ethan Bear and Ian Cole. They let go of Dougie Hamilton. Say what you want about Tony DeAngelo. He has great offensive upside. He's playing with Slavin, so hopefully he has another good year that he did in New York. Their goaltending in Frederick Anderson and Antti Raanta. They let go of Nedeljkovic and Mrazek. Went to Toronto for Mrazek. Nedeljkovic went over
to Jonathan Bernier as well.
Well, Jonathan Bernier was traded for Nedeljkovic, and then they got rid of Reimer. So they bring in 2 fresh goaltenders. This team looks good. I expect them to make the playoffs.
No, I think that's a fair thing when you look at the Canes. From top to bottom, they still have a very talented team. They have, the former coach of the year in Rob Brindamore, who I think is in better shape than his entire team, considering the pictures we've seen. He's an absolute unit.
He's a
beast. I mean, I don't know why GQ has not reached out to him yet. We got to get on the phone about that. But you look at Carolina, and yes, the Jesperi Kotkaniemi, that was bad. I like Kotkaniemi, but what they gave him was just like what do you think he's going to do? Like, look how he did in the playoffs last year. Like, this is the thing that's concerning to me.
To be fair, though, Montreal kind of hated him. I think people, Ducharme did not like him. They sat Caulfield for the first 2 games.
They sat Tatar the entire playoff.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge Kotkaniemi for what happened in Montreal when it was clear that he wasn't someone that fit Montreal style. Like it was
No,
obvious.
I understand. But
So I'm
still, like,
excited to see what he does in a Rob Brindamore style offense.
he has a lot to prove. He has a lot to prove this season. The biggest thing for me, and obviously you guys will see it when Shane shows the graphic later on. The biggest thing for me is you have a completely new goaltending situation, completely new. You moved on from Alex Nedeljkovic because you didn't want to give him the money that he was asking for. You don't even make an attempt to try to keep Jonathan Bernier for whatever reason. You bring in Freddie Anderson when he's healthy. When he's healthy, he's very good. And who's their backup? You just said it.
Antti Ranta.
Antti Ranta, who's a solid goaltender, but I think goaltending is going to be the biggest question mark for me.
I think Anderson ends up top 5 in Vezina Trophy.
Really?
I think he has a Vezina Trophy season.
And I think losing Dougie Hamilton is going to hurt them in some capacity, but they still have Jakob Slavin. And think they still have Brady Shea as well.
Yeah, they have Brady Shea, Slavin, and Tony DeAngelo, Brett Pesce, and then Ian Cole and Ethan Bear.
Right. And
so they got rid of like Fleury, Bean, who ended up in Columbus, who we'll talk about shortly, and then Dougie Hamilton, which ended up in New Jersey.
But yeah, like I think Carolina is going to be a solid team and a very, very competitive team, 100%.
Yeah. Moving on from Carolina, because we will try and make this quicker. The Columbus Blue Jackets. You got Patrick Laine acts like bringing in Voracek for Atkinson. Personally, I think that was a great deal. He's looked really good in Columbus in the preseason. It's interesting that he's back in his old stomping ground.
Mm-hmm.
Cole Sillinger is expected to crack the opening day lineup as a second line center between Gustav Nyquist and Oliver Borkstrand. Jack Roslovic, who's expected to have a great year. He's paired up with Boone Jenner and Max Domi. This Columbus team, you have Adam Bockwitz because you got in the deal for Seth Jones. You have Jake Bean coming in. I like this team. They're the Korpisello Merzlikins duo. I like it. I really like this team. I still think they're going to have trouble scoring goals, even with Voracek. I have them bottom of the league. I have bottom of the Metropolitan Division.
Yep.
And I think overall this is going to be a team to watch because they're going to win games. They're going to be in every game they play.
Right.
But again, I think this is a boomer, like not even a boomer bust, but this is a team that can upset in this division. I'm just not going to hold my breath on it.
And they still have Zach Werenski on the back end. So, I mean, and they signed him to a contract, which is great because what they did is they signed it so that they're only paying him for his good years. And I think that was a really, really good move by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Look, the Blue Jackets are definitely going to finish at the bottom of this division. They're in a rebuilding phase, which is fine. Blue Jackets fans are not upset about this. It's obviously frustrating, though, when you know the amount of talent that they've had over the last 2-3 years that has just gone out the door because obviously being a smaller market, it's harder to give out money hand over fist. The thing for me is Patrick Laine continues to sign one-year deals and constantly proves that he's earning.
He's worth it.
He's worth it. And the question mark is this. Will Columbus finally decide to give somebody like him that money? Or is he going to walk out the door as well after this season?
They will. If I think they're going to see what he does this year. If he does really well, I think they do.
I think that, and if they do, I think it'll be during the season. I don't think they wait till the offseason to do it because the question mark is going to be once you get to the trade deadline. If Laine is still not signed, is he going to get moved at the deadline to go somewhere?
I mean, hey, you could get a pretty penny for that. So you have to at that point you have to commit to either Laine or bringing in someone else, and depending on what offers are on the table, you might want to commit to somebody else.
Right, especially if you get like an offer where I don't know, you get like a first and maybe 2 seconds or something like that, or
like it all depends. It all depends on the offer,
right? But I like Laine. I think Laine is going to score like 40 some odd goals again, and I think he's going to.
This is going to be a good team to watch, in my opinion. They're going to be fun.
They have cool uniforms. I've always liked the Blue Jackets uniforms. I like the Blue Jackets podcast that we have on this network. These guys are great. They're just they're going to be a competitive team. It's just going to be harder because like you said, I think that their offense is definitely going to be lacking.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on from the Columbus Blue Jackets, we are going over to the New Jersey Devils, who, just so you know, just signed Jimmy Vesey to a 1-year deal.
Did they? Wait, did they? Did
Yeah,
they
they
do that? They
literally just
did it?
like 10 minutes ago or
Oh,
6
see,
minutes ago, 1 year, 800,000 for
well, good
Jimmy
for him.
Vesey.
He just, the thing about VC, I'm going to say really quick, he actually was really good in the preseason with the Devils. He proved that he belongs in the NHL, and I hope he makes this roster starting in training camp. I mean, starting the season. He earned a bottom 6 role.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. There was so much promise with him, but looking at the daily face-off lines, you have Thomas Tatar, who was mistreated in Montreal.
He was mistreated in free agency.
Yeah,
he was still there like 3 weeks after this.
Yeah, but that's because he was benched the entire time, so teams were worried. Like, so you have Thomas Tatar with Jack Hughes and is it Sharangovich?
Yegor Sharangovich.
Sharangovich. Okay,
or Sharangovich as we call him, because this man likes to score goals.
He does. I've seen. You got Nico Hischier with Jesper Bratt and Andre Johnson, Miles Wood with Pavel Zacha, and Jane Kukkonen.
Janne Kuokkanen.
Okay, Janne Kuokkanen.
Yeah. It's Janne Kuokkanen, and also it's Andreas Janssen.
Oh, Andreas Janssen.
Janssen.
Mm-hmm. Jesper Bachfist, Michael McLeod, and Dawson Mercer. That's the reported on Daily Faceoff. But my big question, or my big look, is that defense. Ryan Graves, Dougie Hamilton, Ty Smith, Damon Severson,
PK.
Is it Jonas
Jonas it's Jonas Siegenthaler. That's Jonas Siegenthaler.
Okay, Siegenthaler with PK Subban. That's the defense that I'm really interested in. Ryan Graves, Dougie Hamilton should be very good together. Ty Smith should have another fantastic, a sophomore year should be great.
Hopefully, we first have to get him healthy because he didn't play at all in the preseason because of an injury. But hopefully he'll be ready to go. Whether it's the first game or 2 or 3 games into it, that's
personally, I don't have New Jersey making those steps to be a contender.
Understandable.
But I think they're going to be very good this year. Like, they're going to be fun to watch. I think next year you're going to see them take a step. And that's just because of how tough this division is. Like, the Metro division,
the division of death, as I've called it before. It's division of death.
It's just hard for them. And I think they're going to make those steps, but they're just not going to be competitive. I have them finishing in the bottom 2 of the division, right above Columbus. I know you're mad about it, but you look at who's ahead of them. It's hard. It's really hard to take this team and be like, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be fighting for a playoffs. Obviously, anything can happen. There's a reason why they play their games. But looking at this roster versus the league versus that division, I don't see it happening.
I've said it. I've tried to be as consistent as I possibly can from the time I started talking about the team once we got through free agency and everything, that this team on paper is going to either make the playoffs as probably like the 8th seed, or they're going to finish a couple points out. That's the way that I see it, because this team is a lot more talented. This team is a lot more experienced, and this team is a lot more confident in itself than it was last year. And now we have an 82-game season. We start the year off with 5 games at home. So I think that's a really good opportunity to kind of get off to a good start. And obviously they got Chicago right away. So that's going to be
it's going to be a very good team I'm excited for.
We're only the second. I think we're only like the second or third team that gets to face Seattle, because Seattle comes to New Jersey literally as our second game of the year.
Yeah, Ottawa doesn't play New Jersey until like February.
Right. And and we'll see what happens with Mackenzie Blackwood's situation with getting vaccinated. And we got word just today that he did not test positive for COVID-19, which is
good for him.
Huge relief. I do hope that he does get vaccinated at some point, but I kind of get why he's not, because he's worried about it screwing up his recovery from his off-season surgery.
Well, they were saying, and I don't like getting political on this show, so we're gonna keep it to a minimal. But like there was potentially there was reports that some of his doctors were telling him that it's not the greatest idea, because it could. And I don't know how true they were, but I know there were reports of it.
Yeah.
If that's the case, he needs to come out and say it. He just needs to come out and say that, hey, my doctors are recommending.
He basically said it without saying it.
But he needs to come out and say it. Like, he just needs to straight up be like, my doctors are recommending me to stay away from it right now. When I get the approval, I will do it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's what we're all expecting as well. I think we're expecting him. I think he'll talk about it and he'll explain it after he gets vaccinated. That's what I think is going to happen.
Hopefully.
I think he'll get vaccinated. Then they'll obviously ask him about it, and then we'll go from there. Because again, everybody's talking about, oh, the Devils can't use him in Canada. Well, they can't use him in New York either.
Yeah,
they can't use him in California either. So this is not yeah, you could play in New Jersey, and we don't even go to Canada until like February or like December.
Yeah, it's not for a while.
For a while, so we got time, but we'll see what happens to that. But looking at the Devils as a whole, Shane, they're a lot more talented. A guy like Dawson Mercer has proven that he belongs in the league, even though he's never played a professional game before in his life. He looked phenomenal in the preseason. And even Alexander Holtz, I think, has earned his spot as well. But it might be tough because VC obviously now has a contract, and
where it's going to be interesting to see.
He might be Holtz might be a guy that starts the year in Utica, but then like a month into the season or something, he gets called up because I think that he's ready to play in the NHL as well. But it might be just because of not enough spaces on the roster right away. I mean, I don't know. We won't know till Monday what the roster officially is because I think you have to have your roster settled.
Yeah,
by tomorrow.
Waivers. Apparently the waiver wire today is huge.
Oh yeah,
all of waivers from yesterday cleared. But Travis Hamonic, Kyle Turris, Adam Brooks out of Toronto is on waivers.
Kyle Turris is going to get another shot somewhere.
Ottawa.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised if Ottawa claims him. I'm not going to lie.
They have Ottawa, a relationship.
Obviously, they have a relationship. They also have a need for center, right? So may as well take him off of it. But yeah, no, it's a long list. List.
But going back to the Devils, just really quickly, I would
Carolina's
just say
made some moves.
Mm-hmm. But I was just going to say,
apparently it's a super freaking
yeah, it's a quite a long.
It's a super long list.
But to finish up with the Devils, I mean, look, I can understand why people would say, including you, Shane, I can understand why people say the Devils are another year away, and because of the division they're in, it's going to be difficult. But I think that because if you look at the way that the team progressed this offseason, and you look at the fact that a lot of the other teams in the division really kind of either didn't do a whole lot or in some ways didn't make themselves better, I feel like it gives the Devils a better shot. I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are, which is understandable. But I'm really excited for this year because I feel like the Devils are finally going in the right direction.
Yeah, and I mean, they have a bright future, and they this is the rebuild they should have done in 2017 when they won the draft lottery, just a couple of years later. But I'm excited for the New Jersey Devil fans. Like, I'm excited for you and the rest of the New Jersey Devil fans.
And we got Luke Hughes, so we got 2 of the 3 Hughes brothers in the system, so that's a positive. We're not getting Quinn Hughes. We're not getting Quinn Hughes.
No, not at all. But moving on. You know who we forgot to mention that ended up in Anaheim, which makes their team even more deadly? Brent Clark. Or not Edmonton.
Oh, that's a good point.
No, it wasn't Anaheim. No. Who did Brent Clark end up again?
No, Brent Clark went to L.A.
L.A., that's who it was.
That makes Brent Clark. And his younger brother, older brother plays for New Jersey. Right, he plays in Utica. Well, he's with Utica now, but that's his younger brother that got drafted by LA.
Yeah, but moving over to the Islanders, I think we both have them finishing top of this division. You bring in Zach Parise on that third line with Pajot and Waldstrom. This team looks solid. You bring back Zdeno Chara. That's probably my biggest complaint with the Islanders right now.
They're just the older version of the Devils. You just got to call it like it is. They're basically the Islanders of the Devils of years past.
I think that's my biggest issue is that you have Andy Green and Zdeno Chara on your defense. So you're older and slower, in my opinion. But I think overall, this team is poised to win with Varlamov and Sorokin. Like Sorokin, they're primed to win this division.
Yeah, 100%. To me, they're the top dog in this division. They're battle tested. 2 years in a row, they lose in the conference finals to freaking Tampa Bay. This team This team wants so badly to get to the finals and win the cup. And yeah, they're older. They're a little bit slower on the defensive side, but Barry Trotz and Lou Lamoriello love to play that neutral zone trap defense, and it's going to work out very well for the Islanders. They have one of the best goaltending tandems in the league with Varlamov and Sorokin. The biggest question mark to me, Shane, is this. Are they going to get more offense than they have been in the last couple of years? Are they,
Probably.
especially when they get in the playoffs?
I think Parise actually makes a difference. I feel confident in
I hope
saying
so.
that Parise is going to make a difference with this team. I think
like to
he
see it.
is going to do well with this Islanders team with Pajot, and I'm excited for it. I think this Islanders team, I'm excited for the first Islanders Rangers game. Not even going to lie. I would love to see these two teams go at each other because I think the Rangers are also in a position to compete for top in this division.
I agree. Yes,
And
I agree.
they just signed, we're going to move on from the Islanders to the perfect segue to the Rangers. But Zibanejad signing that 8-year, $8.5 million AAV deal.
Wow. So I guess that means the Rangers are out of the Eichel sweepstakes?
It sounds like it. It also sounds like they just found their they just announced their captain is going to be the Zibanejad. A lot of people are saying
it's about damn time that they did that.
Like a lot of people are saying that Zibanejad with this contract is getting the C, and so I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. I would be okay with it. I would be 100% okay with him getting the C.
Mm-hmm.
Lafreniere is going to make those up. Kako in the preseason, from what I saw, looks fantastic. It looks like he's finally comfortable and he's growing into himself.
Same thing with Jack Hughes. I was trying to tell people these guys are not bust. They needed more time.
This team looks good. Adam Fox and K'Andre Miller and Ryan Lindgren on that back end should do very well.
Fox and obviously, Lindgren. Let me tell you guys, Fox and Lindgren as a defensive pairing, that's going to be fun to watch.
And then you have Shesterkin and Georgiev as your goaltenders. Yeah. Like the Rangers
and Gerard Gallant, they brought in Gallant as a new head coach.
Like we both have the Rangers third in the division.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very good chance that they finish second. I'm not even going to lie to you. I think there's a good chance they finish second.
The only thing that's stopping them from finishing second to me is the Capitals, because the Capitals are the Capitals.
That's fair. I mean, I have the Capitals finishing fourth. You have them finishing second. I have the Canes finishing second.
Right. But to me, with the Rangers, and obviously it's always tough when you have to compliment your rival, but no, they are a very talented team. My question, though, Shane, is this. They may have overdone it when it came to getting more physical and gritty. They may have overdone it a tad bit because of what Tom Wilson did to their entire franchise.
I don't like the Ryan Reeves. I thought the Ryan Reeves.
I don't like the Barclay Goodrow move.
I don't like the contract, but I like the player. I think
the player's fine, but you don't give him 6 years as a bottom 6 guy.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sammy Blais. I like bringing in Sammy Blais, moving out Buchnevich.
I prefer that they had kept Buchnevich, but
I think the Blais fits better with the long-term look of this team.
Well, the way that Gallant wants to play, Blais fits in better than Buchnevich does.
Yeah, which is also why they brought in Reeves, because he had him in Vegas. And I don't know. This team looks solid.
Jacob Trouba's got to perform. He's got to perform because he has really struggled since he got to New York.
100%. Worst decision he ever made, in my opinion.
And is this the year that Artemi Panarin can win the Hart Trophy? I think that's a really good question.
Nope. I think as long as McDavid's healthy, it's his to lose every year.
Until he retires, it's every year.
Unfortunately for Panarin and all these other guys, unless McDavid is hurt, a lot of these trophies, like the Art Ross and like all those ones, are his to lose. Like it is the way it is.
Yeah. We'll see.
But moving on from the Rangers over to the Flyers. Now this team has a boomer bust written all over them. Carter Hart and friggin' Martin Jones goaltending tandem. They bring in Ryan Ellis and Rasmus Ristolainen to replace Meyer and Gostisbehere. You have Keith Yandel and Justin Braun as your bottom pairing.
It's not Provorov, which is a positive.
Yeah. I mean, you bring in Derek Brassard as your second line center.
I forgot he was still playing in the NHL.
Yeah, because you moved on from Nolan Patrick. Which
that's unfortunate.
I didn't agree with. I thought that was stupid, but that's besides
the
point.
Vegas just gets a lot of good depth with Nolan Patrick.
Well, they moved, because they moved Nolan Patrick to Nashville in part of the Ryan Ellis trade, and then they moved Nashville Patrick to Glass.
Yep.
So I think they got the worst end of that, to be honest. As much as I like Ellis, you don't trade a center for a defenseman and then watch that center get traded for another center. Like either way, bringing in Cam Atkinson for Voracek should be great. I'm excited to see what happens. I have this team sitting 6th. You have them sitting 7th. I think that's a
Well,
fair
neither one of us
representation.
believe that this team is that good.
I don't think they're good. I think they're top 6 heavy. Their defense
Massively
is solid, but I think that if Hart struggles, I don't think Jones can take over.
The biggest question mark for years with the Philadelphia Flyers has always been goaltending. Regardless, even when they went to the Cup in 2010,
With
like
friggin' what's his name?
Leighton.
Leighton? Was it Leighton or Lehtinen?
It was Leighton. It was Leighton
Oh,
and
man.
Boucher.
Yeah.
That was literally what they had, and they kept changing them every other game because neither one of them could consistently stop the puck. So here's the thing. Chuck Fletcher and Alain Vigneault, this is it for them. If they don't even at least make the playoffs, they're both getting fired. I'm like 100%
100%.
certain they get fired.
Yeah.
The
Fire.
Flyers
Who did they
the
fire? Was it
Flyers-
Hackstall? Not Hackstall.
Yeah,
Who was their
Hextall.
GM that they fired?
They fired Hextall.
Was Hackstall their? I thought he was the coach.
No, Hextall was the coach. Hextall was the GM.
Oh yeah, that's because I was
Hextall now, if you remember, Hextall now is in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So Chuck Fletcher, like, he didn't do that well in Minnesota. Just going to call it like it is. He was the assistant GM for 1 year, I think, with the Devils. And then, like, halfway through the season, he left and became the GM of the Flyers. The Flyers got to make the playoffs to save these guys' jobs. Otherwise, they're getting canned because this is a team that I don't know, man. Like, they don't look that good on paper, to be honest with you, Shane.
Yeah, it's one of those teams.
Carter Hart's going to have a big year. He has to.
Agreed.
Even hoping from Team Canada's perspective, they're hoping he has a good year.
Yeah, and perfect segue from Philly is to Pittsburgh, where you look at their cross state rival.
Last dance.
And
the last dance.
You're most likely not starting with Crosby. You're not starting with Malkin. So your number one center is Jeff Carter.
You're not starting the year with Gensel either, mind you.
Yeah, Getzel's out.
Your top forward is Brian Rust or Jeff Carter.
Or Kasperi Kapanen. Or Jason Zucker.
Oh, God. And their goaltending is still a huge issue.
Yeah, and their defense isn't that great either. It's not bad, but it's not off the page.
It's not good.
But if they could weather the storm, if they could weather like the first month and a half, they'll be fine. Guarantee it. If they can weather the first month and a half, Crosby comes back, maybe Malkin comes back near the end of the year, early 2022, they'll be fine. They just need to weather the first, they have to weather until the start of December. That's all they need to do.
I was talking with Berlansky from Tip of the Ice a couple days ago, and I said to him, I said, look, if they don't, like you just said, if they don't weather the storm, if they're struggling out the gate, it won't matter when Crosby and Malkin come back because they'll be too far out of it and they won't be able to come back. So they got to get through this first month and a half of not having these guys there. Luckily, Crosby started skating, so that's a positive sign. Yeah. But this could potentially be the last dance, Shane, for this era of Penguins hockey with Crosby, Malkin, Letang, guys like that. Because I think after this year, especially if they don't make the playoffs, they're gonna have to start tearing it down.
Oh, 100%. And I think this is a team that you want to retire. You want as much opportunity as possible with the guys they have.
Right.
It's the same thing with Washington, though. We were moving on to Washington. You have Alex Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Wilson. You're not starting the season with Backstrom. So Lars Eller's your second line center. Your first round pick in 2020, Hendrik Lapierre, which huge fan of. Thought that if he was healthy, heading into his draft year, he's the top 10 pick. He has that kind of talent. He just had what people thought were concussion issues, but they ended up being neck issues. But now that he's healthy, he's looking great. Anthony Mantha looks to rebound off of how we finished last year with Washington. He looked really good. TJ Oshie should always be a force. But that defense, you have Orlov, Schultz, and Carlson, then everyone else is kind of just meh. And you're what? Vanacek and Samsonov are your two goaltenders.
That's a pretty good goaltending tandem, if you ask me.
It is, but is it good enough?
I think it personally is. I look at Washington as a team that is still probably, I would say, another 2, maybe 3 years where then they have to really start to tear it down because they're still a very talented team overall. And yes, age is definitely a concern. with the main core guys that they have. But I still think that Washington's just going to be a really, really tough team to face off against, and they're going to score a lot of goals. I want to see what Anthony Mantha does because I don't agree with getting rid of Verona.
I don't agree with that either. I
I
didn't
don't
like that.
understand that. I really didn't get it. But Mantha's got to prove it, man. Mantha's got to come out and perform and produce. We know Ovechkin's going to produce. We know Tom Wilson, even though he does fight a lot, he does also put up a decent amount of points for a guy that his main job is to be physical. We're hoping Backstrom can be healthy enough to where he gets to 1,000 games. I think he's like 17, 18 away from 1,000. So I hope to see that. I hope he gets there. And Peter Laviolette is going to get a lot out of these guys because he's a very demanding coach. If everything works the way that the Capitals expect, this is definitely going to be one of the better teams in the Metropolitan Division.
Yeah, that's for sure. With that being said, we're going to take a quick, 30-second break or less, and then we'll come back with our Atlantic Division expectations. And we are back. And just a quick reminder, we are also sponsored by Customized Sports Canada. You can head on over to Customized Sports, use promo code 13th Man, get 13% off of any of your orders. They have high quality kits. All the jerseys you see behind me right now, if you're watching on video, if you're listening to this on a podcast form, I apologize, but all the jerseys behind me right now are all using Customized Sports Canada kits. They're fantastic. Quick delivery. They are amazing people to deal with. So head on over. The description's in below in the video. I'll post it on Twitter and Instagram as well. But let's jump right into it. We got the Atlantic Division. We're going to start with the Boston Bruins. And personally, I feel so bad for Boston to a certain extent. You finally get David Krejci, who has spent most of his career playing with, scrubs and plugs. You finally get him Craig Smith and Taylor Hall. And then after a shortened season, he's like, nah, I'm going to go home and finish off my career in the Czech League.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised by that when Krejci decided he didn't really retire from the NHL. He just kind of was like, Boston didn't really offer me a contract, so I guess I'll just go home for a while. I think he'll probably end up coming back to the NHL before he retires from hockey, but if it's going to be in the NHL, it's going to be with the Bruins because obviously he is a Bruin for life, and that's just how it is. But, they locked up Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall is probably relieved that he doesn't have to be the man because I think that's just not who he is. He wants to be just one of those guys that can just fill in and kind of help the team, not be the main focal point of the entire team. And Boston is still really good. The question is goaltending. Is Tuukka Rask going to be able to come back at some point this year? Will I forgot who they have? Jeremy Swayman, who obviously has a lot of high expectations.
And they brought in Linus Ullmark out of Buffalo,
who honestly, despite playing for Buffalo, was pretty good.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be interesting. My other concern is Derek Forbort really a top pairing defenseman beside McAvoy? I don't know. They're that's my biggest part is Derek Forbort going to actually help McAvoy or is it going to hurt McAvoy? You have Mike Riley and Brandon Carlo, who played really well last year together. You have Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Clifton, who played really well last year together. Mm-hmm. Derek Forbort slots in beside McAvoy. I don't know if he's going to do well, but that's going to be interesting. That bottom six they brought in Foligno and Eric Holla playing with the Brusque. You have Frederick, and then Nosek and Curtis Lazar as your bottom six. This team is deep. I believe they're going to finish top 3 in the division. They're going to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of how deep they go at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I look at them as definitely a playoff team. Obviously, I may have screwed up my division predictions because I was still thinking 4 in each division. So I apologize if it looks a little ridiculous. But Boston is definitely one of the deeper teams that we have in the NHL right now. And I think that if everything just kind of works out the way that they're hoping, this is going to be a team that should be also prepared to make a long run in the playoffs. And that's what you said, Shane. It's about what are they going to do once they get into the postseason? I think that's something that's going to be interesting looking at that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, Boston has all the pieces to be a playoff and Stanley Cup contender. It's just a matter of, are we going to see um, are we going to see that consistently throughout the year? Is Taylor Hall going to have an all-star or even Olympic worthy season? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I think he's a guy to watch. Pasternak and Marchand and Bergeron are going to produce on a nightly basis. It's just all about depth and their goaltending. But with that being said, you can't really count them out. Like they deserve the benefit of the doubt. And then, moving on to Buffalo, though, because Buffalo is just a gong show right now. Your number one
We
center.
should make this really quick.
Yeah, Buffalo. Your number one center is Casey Middlestat. You have Dylan Cousins as your third line center. Those should be reversed, in my opinion, but whatever. You signed Dolly into a bridge deal, so he is on his way out. Robert Hagen for Ristolainen. I don't know how that's going to work out, but man, this team, you have Craig Anderson and Dustin Tokarski as your goaltenders. Like, I love my boy Anderson. Love him.
You do.
But no. Like, no, it just
and they cut Aaron Dell, which I was like, well, why are we cutting Aaron Dell?
Anderson was the fourth goaltender. He was replacement for Lundqvist. Like, he was the fourth goaltender in friggin' Washington, and now you're no.
Well,
just
they do,
no, Buffalo.
Well, to be but they do have one of the best goaltending names in the game, in Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen. Yeah, and I was kind of surprised that Dustin Tokarski was the one that ends up being the backup. Remember, Craig Anderson was debating retiring before the Sabres offered him a deal. So that's kind of the thing where it's like, they let go of Dell, and I'm like, wait a minute, is it Tokarski? I don't know what they want right now. Do they really just want to tank that badly?
Shane Wright, baby, let's get him. I feel bad. Don't go to Buffalo, Shane. Don't go. With that being said, where there's really not much to say about Buffalo. They're going to be at the bottom of the league,
Eichel, right?
the entire year.
Do we even talk about Eichel?
He needs to be moved. All you're doing is hurting him. But well,
obviously we got the news that like now teams can see more of his medical records, and I'm like, somebody just make a move. Like, at this point, now that the Rangers are out of it, I mean, there's no way the Rangers are still in this. Like, there is absolutely no way that the Rangers are still involved in any Jack Eichel sweepstakes. To me, I think you might, I don't know if you would agree, Shane, but like, I think it's down to Calgary now. I really do. I think Calgary's the only one left.
Ottawa and Calgary, and maybe LA.
But like, what can I heard reports that Eichel at this point could care less where he gets traded to. I think he just 100%. Wants out. I think he's just like, I don't care. Like, just send me somewhere. Anaheim, maybe.
Maybe there are teams that are worth, like, that could do it. But we're gonna move on to Detroit. Lucas Raymond is expected to make that roster at a camp.
Got a franchise goaltender for nothing.
Yeah.
Freaking Steve. Why do people make moves with Steve Yzerman? Like, why do they even approach him?
I don't know, but you have Nedeljkovic and Thomas Greiss. You have Morris Seider, who looks like a friggin' amazing defenseman. My thing is Bobby Ryan.
Your boy.
He had a really good
native,
camp.
By the way, I like pointing that out.
He had a really good camp. He had a really good preseason. I hope he signs. I hope they get him off that PTO and he signs. He signs with them. I've talked to a lot of Detroit fans and they really liked what they've seen and they hope that he does it. But man, that top line of Philip Zadina, Dylan Larkin, and Lucas Raymond is going to be so good. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year, definitely next season. This team is ridiculous. I like what they're doing. It's just going to be a matter of time.
Yeah. Look, they're probably not making the playoffs this year. I mean, they're probably finishing towards the bottom of this division, but they're going to be a young, exciting team to watch. They have a lot of positive things to look at. And look, Steve Yzerman knows what he's doing, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to build this team from the ground up. Like, he's going to figure it out. He's already been making moves that have been tremendous. And I'm just excited to see Raymond play. I think Nedeljkovic is going to prove that the Hurricanes were really dumb to just completely move on from him. Also, Thomas Greiss has always been a solid backup goaltender, and I think he's going to
100%.
continue to play that way.
But yeah, my big thing with Detroit is if they're going to sign Bobby Ryan, because he had a really good camp. I would love to see him back for another year.
We shall see. We'll probably know by probably Monday, right?
Probably by some point tomorrow. Moving on from Detroit, going over to the Florida Panthers. This team is all or nothing. We both have them finishing top 3. I have them at 2. You have them at 3. Yep. They just signed Barkov to a $10 million deal for, basically an $80 million deal across 8 years. $70 million of it it's guaranteed in signing bonus. Very similar to the John Tavares contract that he signed when he signed with Toronto. Barkov honestly could have easily gotten $11.5 million on the open market. He got $1.5 million less because he's playing in Florida. They also have 3 of the top 5 first round picks from the 2014 draft with Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart on their roster with Aaron Ekblad. Mm-hmm. This team is all or nothing. They have Antoine Lindell coming in, is expected as their third line center. Owen Tippett finally cracks the top 9. This team should easily make the playoffs.
And then you obviously have the situation with, okay, is it Bobrovsky that's number 1 or is it Spencer Knight? I think
Bobrovsky.
It's probably Bobrovsky because Knight is still young. But I think Spencer Knight is a guy that's going to play a lot this year. I think he's a guy that's definitely up there as a Calder candidate for Rookie of the Year because I think he's that talented. And like you said, Shane, this is an all or nothing team. This is a team that not only wants to make the playoffs, but make a long ass run in the playoffs. And I think that they're capable of doing that with the amount of talent that they have, not only in the top 6, but literally throughout their roster. I really like how they're very balanced in whether it's being skill-wise and also just being a little bit physical. And look, they got Joel Quenneville. He's obviously been there and done that many times. This guy knows what it takes to get this team rolling, and he's going to. And talking about Barkov, he's one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated player in the game today because of what he's able to do on a game-to-game basis. And also just because he plays in Florida, people don't watch him as much. Also, he's very underrated in fantasy as well, which I've noticed. I really don't.
It's because he plays in Florida. People don't realize how good he is. It's like Stamkos. You look at Stamkos' numbers and you're like, wow, this guy has done really well. But then you realize that he was doing it when Tampa wasn't that good, and he's just kind of forgotten about it. It's the same thing with Barkov. They're just kind of forgotten because they play in Florida.
Exactly. So when I look at Florida, they're going to be one hell of a team to watch this season.
They are. They're going to be ridiculously good. But, moving on from Florida, we got the team that went to the Cup final and lost to Tampa. Weird. Honestly, it was such a weird concept to wrap my head around a divisional matchup being a Cup final matchup. It was just either way. Montreal, without Price, without Weber, without Hoffman to start the season that they signed to, they lost Kotkaniemi. They brought in Dvorak.
They're going to struggle. I hate saying this. I think Montreal's going to struggle.
I honestly like their goaltending in Allen and Primo. I think they're good enough, but I don't think for the longevity of it, they're going to be able to sustain it. I don't think they're going to be able to get the goals consistently. I think some of these guys are going to struggle to find the back of the net.
Mm-hmm.
They lost their best defensive center and arguably one of the best defensive centers in the league. And Danault, Danault is
face-off wise, there's nobody better maybe than other than Patrice Bergeron in the game than Philip Danault.
Yeah, I mean it's Danault and it goes Danault or Bergeron, Danault and Couturier, Kopitar, Barkov, those guys.
Travis Zajac was in the top 5, by the way, in case anybody wanted to know.
Yeah,
face-off wise,
face-off wise though, Dvorak is gonna do well. Dvorak is gonna fit in well, but he's no Philip Danault.
No, they're putting an off-branded Philip Danault in his position.
And you're going to rely a lot on Caulfield. And if Caulfield struggles, they're going to struggle. And even with
you're going to put a lot on Nick Suzuki as well and Tyler Toffoli.
That top line, they're going to live and die with that top line of Toffoli, Suzuki, and Caulfield. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to watch Drouin. Not gonna lie, I think Drouin's gonna have a really
I'm
good
pulling
year.
for Drouin, considering what
Same.
he just went through like the last year. Like
Same.
a lot of us gave him crap for how he handled himself in Tampa and like not wanting to be there and was trying to find every way imaginable to get out. And then his relationship with who was the coach in Montreal a couple years ago? He coached the Bruins as well.
Claude Julien.
Claude Julien, he did not have a good relationship with Julien, as far as I was told. But obviously, what he had to go through the past year, and then obviously getting back and playing, I'm expecting him to really start to live up to the expectation that he had for himself and the league had for him a couple years ago when he was in Tampa.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. I think a mentally healthy Drouin should have a really good year.
Mm-hmm.
I still have them missing the playoffs. I actually have them finishing at the bottom 3 of the division. But that's because I have I have a very big hot take coming up next. Literally, we're moving into the Ottawa Senators, the heart of the show, which sends hour for a reason. But the Ottawa Senators looked good. Looked like they went up against Toronto, basically Toronto's opening lineup minus Austin Matthews, without Josh Norris, Shane Pinto, Thomas Chabot, and Artem Zub. And they looked decent. They looked actually like a relatively competitive team. You add those 4 players back into the lineup for opening night, and obviously minus Tkachuk, because whenever Tkachuk signs, that's a completely different issue. The big question is, Egazino was put on waivers today, which makes me to believe that maybe Kastelik kind of slots in, or Logan Shaw slots in. Oh, wow. Breaking trade. Canucks have traded Oli Ulevi to the Panthers. I can never pronounce his name. Pretty sure he was like their first round pick a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he was 5th overall in 2016.
Who'd they trade him for?
I have no idea. But it sounds like he got traded to the Panthers, according to Pierre LeBrun. But anyways, back to Ottawa. I guess
the Panthers got better.
Yeah. But to Ottawa, Ottawa's biggest need center right now. It's been their biggest need. Pinto has looked really good in preseason. Norris was going against the top guys consistently in the North Division last year. I'm going to be honest. I have them sitting 4th in the Atlantic ahead of Toronto, because I don't think Toronto has the mental toughness to withstand any kind of long drought. If they go on a slump for more than like 4 games, I feel like this team could crumble. As I want to know for Toronto, we're literally talking about them soon, but I think Ottawa has the mental toughness if they can get the goaltending from Murray, who has looked really good in the preseason. I think Ottawa can make a run for it.
I think that's definitely a pretty bold take, without a doubt, because you look at Ottawa just as a whole and you see them as a team that may be maybe another year away from being in the playoffs, which is kind of like where I have them. But Ottawa has a lot of pieces that are really exciting to watch. The biggest one is obviously Tim Stützle. I mean, this guy is without a doubt one of the most talented German players we've seen in some time. Obviously, you got Draisaitl as well, and we're not gonna crap on him by any means. But Ottawa, the biggest move that they made to really get this rebuild going was obviously to move on from Erik Karlsson, because I think that it really kind of put in motion a lot of the other moves that they've made. They have a lot of guys that I like. Connor Brown, I'm a really big fan of. Pinto, Sanford. One guy I think, and I don't know, Shane, if you would agree, but one guy that I feel like has been consistent since he got to Ottawa, which was I think a couple of years ago, is Chris Tierney. Chris Tierney has always been a solid player.
Tierney is such a polarizing player in Ottawa, because you have half the fan base who's like, man, we really like this guy. And you have the other fan base being like, this dude is trash. Like, I like Tierney. I think he's a solid bottom six guy. He's a defensive-minded forward. He's a defensive-minded center. He shouldn't see time on the power play. He should be on the penalty kill, probably between 10 to 12 minutes a night. I have no issue with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not an offensive guy, like in my opinion.
No, he's not an offensive guy. He's more of a defensive player.
So he's very polarizing in the Sens community. I'll say that.
Is he considered? He's probably considered one of the veteran leaders on this team, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely. I haven't seen him wear the A. That's not true. He wore the A early in the preseason, but he's probably on the bottom. Like, if I had to pick 5 players that would wear the A, he would probably be 6th or 7th.
I also want to say that I thought that Ottawa got a good amount for trading Dadonov to Vegas, by the way.
I like the Nick Holden. I like bringing in Nick Holden. He's looked really well with Brandstrom and Mete, so I'm excited to see what happens with that. I think he's a very solid defenseman who can be moved at the deadline if you feel you have to.
100%.
But yeah, I think that we should see what happens with this Ottawa team. I think they're gonna make some noise, especially once they get Kachuk back, whenever that is. I think his agent is starting to hurt himself even more now. But with that being said, we're gonna move over to Tampa. We're gonna try getting this wrapped up in the next 20 minutes. So Tampa, you got your typical top 6: Andre Palat, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Killhorn, Sorelli, Stamkos. They bring in Corey Perry, who's trying to pull off the Marian Hossa, go to 3 straight cups, lose the first 2, win the third. They bring it. They still have that solid left side of Hedman, McDonough, and Sergachev. Their goaltending actually got better. They bring in Brian Elliott to replace Curtis McElhinney. So their goaltending has actually gotten better, which is
the only reason that they lost McElhinney is because he decided to retire.
But I think most people would take Brian Elliott over McElhinney any other day, any day.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So obviously their goaltending has gotten better. Their forwards haven't really changed much. I'm expecting this team to just run away with the NHL and go for a 3-peat. I think they're the favorite to win the cup.
I think that they have a very, very good chance. They're certainly one of the top 3. Tampa's Tampa. They've been able to weather every single storm that the NHL has thrown at them, and they're getting rewarded for the many years of coming up short, embarrassing themselves, and now that they're right there. So, there isn't much to say about Tampa because they're still Tampa.
Yeah, they haven't gotten rid of any major pieces. They've probably gotten better.
They lost Yanni Gord, Barclay Goodrow. They lost their third line, which is obviously,
and they replaced it.
Yeah, so they're fine.
But moving on to the Toronto Maple Leafs, as it pains me to say.
Did you happen to watch the All or Nothing thing yet?
No, we started watching it, but we haven't watched it recently.
I spent one day. I watched the whole thing. Oh my.
It
is something to watch, man. If you're a hockey fan, watch this.
Personally, I think this team is worse with their goaltending with Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek. I don't know how well they're going to do with those two. I don't need neither have been able to show that they can run a team. They can be the guy in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Is Nick Ritchie able to replace Zach Hyman? Can he do what Zach Hyman did? No idea.
His numbers might look better because he's playing with Austin Matthews, but
I don't think he's going to replace what Zach Hyman was able to do.
Right.
You bring in David Kampf, Andre Kass, and Michael Kass, and then Michael Benting, basically all bottom 6 guys who looking to crack the lineup.
Did they keep Jack Bogosian or no?
No, he went back to Tampa.
He went.
I think he went back to Tampa. He went somewhere. I know that.
He went somewhere. Yeah. They kept Wayne Simmons, so they got that.
With trash.
They kept Thornton?
No, he went to Florida.
Right, he went to Florida. I was trying to remember where he went. I could not remember where he went.
But I don't know. This team has to start out strong. If they do not start out strong, if they lose, 5 of their first 15 games, if they're sitting 7-5-2 or 3, I'm worried if I'm a Leafs fan.
I think you're worrying anyway. The way this is going to go, I think you're worrying right from the start.
Probably. I think it's boom or bust. This is one of the teams that it's boom or bust. It's cup or nothing. It's a first round
win. Cup or nothing.
It's literally a first round win or nothing. Like you need to get out of the first round. If you can't not get out of the first round,
Yeah.
there's going to be changes. It's just that simple.
Right.
You have what 3 years till you have like, this is year 3 or 4 or year 2 or 3 of the Matthews contract. How many like you have 2 more years of Austin Matthews before he's a UFA. That's 2, including this season. You have 3 years until Matthews is a UFA. You have 3 years to win the cup because the following summer. So in 3 years, they have Nylander and Matthews UFAs. The following summer, they have Tavares and Marner UFAs.
Yeah. This is it. This is it, man. I mean,
If they can't, like, how do you expect someone to sign, a 27-year-old to sign with your team long term if you can't even get out of the first round with them?
Right. Well, I mean, look, the team with the most pressure going into the season is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, you have to call it like it is. There's no team that has more pressure than they do. And everybody says, "Oh, what about Tampa? They won 2 in a row." They won the cup.
Yeah, they won 2 in a row. They have no
they won
pressure.
A playoff series.
Like they've won 2 in a row.
There's no pressure. If they don't win, like I doubt that Lightning fans are going to be like really pissed off about.
They got swept by Columbus, and then the next year came back and won the cup 2 straight years.
And this is what right. And this is the only reason why, like, I feel better about backing the Maple Leafs because I feel like they've literally gotten to the point where they have been embarrassed so much.
Keep getting embarrassed.
Right, that they keep being embarrassed. No, but like there's some similarities between Toronto and what Tampa went through. Toronto, like, they just lost. They had a 3 games to 1 lead against Montreal of all teams and blew it with no fans. Well, until game 6 and 7, but for the most part with no fans. I mean, there was no reason for them not to win that series.
Yeah,
no reason.
People were saying, "Oh, we were out Tavares." Like you had a 3-1 lead without Tavares. It's not like Tavares got hurt in game 5.
3 games. You lost game 1. Okay, we'll give you that. But then you won the next 3 games in convincing fashion
without Tavares. It's not like, and I think that's my issue. It's like, it's not like you lost Tavares, in game 5 and then lost game 5, 6, and 7.
Right. So really, for Sheldon Keefe, Kyle Dubas, and an entire team, it's got to happen this year, or it's never going to happen.
Yeah. Toronto, there's so many question marks with Toronto. But before we head off, because that's the end of the Atlantic Division, 2.5 hours of this has been awesome. Honestly, it's been the most I've talked hockey in a while.
I think it's the most you and I have talked like together as well. I don't think we've ever gotten this far.
Oh, we've gotten like 2.5 hours when we were doing Devils, but that was like while ago. Give me your cup predictions.
So I have, Shane already knows because he saw it, so he's gonna laugh. But for me,
I shook my head. I
have an all Canadian Cup final this year, and I have the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Calgary Flames. And let me explain from both sides. With Toronto, I kind of just going off of what I said about the similarities between them and Tampa. I feel like Toronto has gone through so much embarrassment that at this point they have decided that they have to get over the hump, and I feel like they somewhat improved their bottom 6 by getting a little bit grittier, a little bit tougher, and that's what Tampa ended up doing the first year they won the Cup. They just got a little bit more physical down low because that was something that they were struggling with so much talent around it in the top 6. So I look at that. Yes, the goaltending is certainly an issue with Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek, but also they do have a solid third guy in Michael Hutchinson, who even last year played pretty well, despite obviously, the circumstances. So I think that they're okay on the back end. I think that they are going to have a really, 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 really successful regular season. I think they're going to get off to the start that Shane was talking about. And I think they're going to finally get over the hump of just winning a series. And to me, Shane, once they get over the hump and exercise the demon of just winning a playoff series, they're going to be so much more relaxed moving forward in the postseason that they're going to be able to just go out there and play really good hockey. That's the way I look at it. And then from Calgary's perspective, first of all, Shane, we talked about the Pacific Division is weak as hell. Very weak. But one thing that has been consistent every year, there's one team that we don't expect that makes some sort of run, whether it's a cup run or if it's like a long playoff run. Last year was Montreal. The year before that was Dallas. to me, I feel like this is that year where Calgary finally gets its act together, and these guys are able to step up. Guys like Gaudreau, Mangiapane, bringing in Blake Coleman. The goaltending has to improve. Markstrom has to be that number one guy. And Suter, I feel like, is a really solid coach even now. And I think he's going to get these guys to be able to be really prepared. And I think they're going to go into the playoffs as a hot team, and they're going to have that momentum going into it, and they're going to have a lot of success. And also, it's a pretty tough building to play in if you're an opponent playing in the old Saddle Dome. So those are my reasons why. So for me, it's Toronto versus Calgary in the Cup final.
That's fair. I can respect those opinions. For me,
Tampa's got to be one of them, right?
No, for me, actually, it's Colorado and New York. I think it's going to be the Islanders.
The Islanders?
I think the Islanders, it's going to be Colorado versus New York. I think the Islanders have gone to the conference final the last 2 years. They know what it takes to get.
They know what they need to do, yeah.
They know what it takes to get that far. They know what they have to do to get over that hump. I think this is the year they finally do it. They don't have to face Tampa until that conference final game. And I think Tampa, Florida meet in that second round.
Yep.
And I think Florida comes up top. And I think the Islanders can beat the Panthers easily. I have the Islanders out of the East. I have Colorado. I don't think there's anyone outside of Vegas. And I think Vegas got worse than they were last year. Fleury had a huge part in that game, in that series win over Colorado. I think, maybe losing Braun Saad hurts a little bit, but I think overall Colorado is the best team out of the West, and I think they're going to come out of it. And I have the Islanders winning them.
Fair enough. How many games? Do you have games? Or
I have 5. I think they win in 5.
I have Toronto in 6.
Yeah, I think Barry Trotz, if you get Barry Trotz is a coach that can. We saw it. They beat Vegas in 2018, and I think he can do the same against Colorado in a 7-game series. I think they beat him in 5, especially if they have home ice. Yeah. If the first 2 games are in New York, they're
in that new arena. By the way,
yeah, and I think that's what makes the difference for the Islanders.
Well, even if it's the UBS arena, the Islander fan base is a very intimidating fan base, especially when you get into postseason. Look at what they did in the last year of the Coliseum last year. Yep. How impactful the crowd being there was to the Islanders.
Which is why I think if the Islanders have home ice, if they could win, they don't even have to win the President's Trophy. I mean, obviously you want to win the President's Trophy, but if they can get home ice throughout the Eastern Conference, they're fine.
Right.
If they play Colorado and Colorado has home ice, if they can head back to New York 1-1, New York's in trouble.
I could see that. So again, no, that's a really good matchup.
Colorado's
that would be a fun matchup to watch.
I think so. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But with that being said, guys, thank you for watching and listening to this 2-hour rant, or part 2 of this 2.5-hour episode. If you haven't already checked out part 1, head on over to check out part 1. Thank you, Neil, for doing this and spending your early Sunday afternoon with me. It was a pleasure having you.
Of course, man. It's always a pleasure to come on and talk hockey, talk CFL football, which we've done before, talk NFL. It's just great to talk to you, and I'll definitely come on whenever you need me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Same with you with the Devils. Before we head out, where can people find you?
So you can follow the Devil State of Mind podcast on Twitter at Devil State. As you can see, if you're watching this, you can see it right there at Devil State. On Instagram at Devil State of Mind. You can also like us on Facebook. We have new episodes that come out every Monday and Thursday. So I have a new episode coming out tomorrow. You can follow me on my personal Twitter at THENVPSHOW and my personal Instagram at NVPQB11. And man, just as always, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast, and I'm looking forward to the season finally getting underway. And we have so much: the regular season, All-Star game, outdoor games, the Olympics. I mean,
we're gonna have to do an Olympic episode.
We have to do an Olympic watch along. I feel like we got to do something like USA
100%.
Canada.
100%.
We got to do that. But again, thanks for having me on, man. This is great.
Hey, no problem. Again, guys, give Neil a follow. He's a great guy. Great listen. Head on over, check him out if you're interested in the New Jersey stuff. Again, thank you for coming on, Neil.
No problem.
All right, guys, and there you have it. That wraps up today's this week's episode of the Sens Hour podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Remember, head out over DraftKings, THPN promo code. You can also head over to Instagram, Twitter at Sens_hour, myself, Shane_RY13, and check out the links below. We got some check out, Fanatics, NHL Shop, all that fun stuff. Get your newest gear. Links are below. Stay safe, and we'll catch you here next week.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network. New shows every day. Find us at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.